Some of you may notice if you look at me, my face is a little swollen. I didn't get in a fist fight. I continue the saga as the world's most unlikely beekeeper, and I got stung by a bee in my eye yesterday. So that's a lot of fun. Let me start with a few introductions. Remotely tonight, we have Commissioner Renee Garner. Hello, Renee. Can you say hello so make sure we can hear you?
Hello.
That'll work. We have Commissioner Larry Whitley, Mayor Pro Tem Ken McCool, Town Manager Becky Hawk, Town Attorney Charlie Buckley, Commissioner Mark Tofano, Commissioner Gina Hoover, Commissioner John Urban, Town Clerk Lori Canapino, Planning Director Jay Camp, and our Communications Coordinator Maureen Keith. I'd like to move on to the invocation with Commissioner Whitley.
Thank you, Mayor. For tonight, I'm going to do a reflection. This week is a mark for Christians all over the world as we celebrate Holy Week. Sunday past was Palm Sunday, which represented the triumphant entry of Jesus into Jerusalem, where they were shouting, Hosanna, Hosanna. On Monday, today, they cleansed the temple because Jesus said, my house should be a house of prayer, and they had made it a den of thieves. On Tuesday, the Saharians challenged Jesus's authority. Jesus foretold the destruction of the temple in Jerusalem
within the communications division as well as the records division. So I just appreciate your love and support. Thank you.
Thank you.
Those of you that don't know, Talia has been with us a little over 5 years. She was a supervisor in our communications section, so she knows the sacrifices that go down inside of that room every single day, 24 hours a day. So with that, I'll read the proclamation. Proclamation in recognition of National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week, April 10 through 16, 2022. Whereas emergencies can occur at any time that require police, fire, or emergency medical services, and whereas when an emergency occurs, the prompt response of police officers, firefighters, and paramedics is critical to the protection of life and preservation of property. And whereas the safety of our police officers and firefighters is dependent upon the quality and accuracy of information obtained from citizens who telephone the Town of Matthews Police Emergency Communications Center. And whereas public safety telecommunicators are the first and most critical contact our citizens have with emergency services. And whereas public safety telecommunicators are the single vital link for our police officers and firefighters by monitoring their activities by radio, providing them information and ensuring their safety. And whereas public safety telecommunicators of the Town of Matthews have contributed substantially to the apprehension of criminals, suppression of fire, and treatment of patients. And whereas each dispatcher has exhibited compassion, understanding, and professionalism during the performance of their job in the last year. Therefore, be it resolved that the Town of Matthews declares the week of April 10 through 16, 2022 to be the National Public Safety Telecommunicators Week in honor of the men and women whose diligence and professionalism keep our town and citizens safe. In witness whereof, the Mayor John Higdon has hereunto set his hand and caused the seal of the Town of Matthews to be affixed this 11th day of April, 2022.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief. Before we move on, I want to just reiterate how very, very important our telecommunicators are. Of course, they start the whole process when there's an emergency. So Ms. Hood, thank you very much. And please pass along the thanks and appreciation from this board and all the citizens of Matthews. We really appreciate what you do. Chief did such a good job on that one. We're going to go on to the next agenda item, recognize Child Abuse Prevention Month.
Mr. Mayor, Board, thank you very much. During the month of April, we recognized National Child Abuse Prevention Month and the importance of communities working together to help families thrive and prevent child maltreatment. Throughout the year, communities are encouraged to increase awareness about child and families' well-being and work together to implement effective strategies that support families and prevent child abuse and child neglect. It's estimated that 1 in 7 children in the U.S. has experienced child abuse and or neglect in the past year. It's also believed that 1/3 of child abuse cases are reported to the proper authorities, making it extremely underreported and an often hidden crime. We also know that children who experience any form of violence in childhood have a 13% greater likelihood of not graduating from high school. And adult survivors in childhood abuse are more likely to experience mental health difficulties, including depression, anxiety, bipolar disorder, PTSD, eating disorders, and substance use disorders. It is by working with our community partners in prevention and education, and also in investigation, that we can all take an active role in preventing child abuse. It's for this reason I'm extremely thankful for the 2 partners we have here today, Sue Sproat from COS Kids here in Matthews, and Andrew Oliver from Pat's Place. COS Kids supports families to improve childhood health, education, and development to ensure all kids are prepared to be successful in school and beyond. And Andrew Oliver from Pat's Place. Pat's Place is our child advocacy center in Mecklenburg County. Pat's Place coordinates the investigation, the treatment, and prosecution of some of the most serious cases of child abuse in Mecklenburg County. Pat's Place provides an environment where a child's well-being is their first priority and break the cycle of abuse through training, education, and community outreach. But before I read the proclamation, I would like to offer each of them some opportunity to speak, please.
Thank you, Chief. Good evening, all. At COS Kids, we are early childhood specialists, and we strive to be advocates for all children, as well as thought leaders in the community. We want to speak on issues affecting the healthy development of children and families. We use advocate, mentor, and donate as examples for how the community can get involved. So first of all, we're showing some photos here of our Pinwheel Gardens. We collaborated with the town and multiple businesses around downtown Matthews to show these. They'll be out all the month of April to honor Child Abuse Prevention Month. And these gardens are a symbol, and they represent that the happy childhood that every child deserves. But symbols can only go so far because we all have a part to play. Celebrate early learning means being an advocate for young children, their teachers, and their families. This allows our entire community to be growing better together through the importance of investing in our youngest generation. The first few years of a child's life are indeed the building blocks for the decades to come. So we must do everything we can to protect them from traumas like abuse or neglect. Mentorship, providing stable, consistent relationships with trusted adults is one of the best ways that we can all be a connection to our children. The pandemic brought countless negative effects in our community, and it seems like they just won't go away. Instability creates household stress, which could even lead to neglect or abuse. At COS Kids, we specifically use a two-tiered approach that supports both the children and their families, creating a better home environment through financial and educational resources for parents. We can all play a huge role in our community by donating to organizations who support healthy families. Growing better together only works if everyone is able to find solid footing. Every season presents a new opportunity. Every season presents new opportunities to invest into the children around us, but there is never a better time to start planting those seeds of support than right now. Supporting children's programs, all voices speaking up on their behalf, and time invested in nurturing their futures are all incredible ways for our community to show that we are growing better together. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Chief, for having me out today. I'm Andrew Oliver. I'm with Pat's Place Child Advocacy Center. We are the community's child abuse center here in Mecklenburg County. Every day, we see the worst of the worst cases that one human can inflict on another. Chief, your detectives and your police officers are on the front lines every day, working to ensure that children have an effective child abuse response that works for them. We open our doors every day to children in need of hope and healing through our forensic interviewing process. We provide advocacy support and trauma counseling and medical care so that children can heal and grow up to be the people that they were meant to be. So Mayor, thank you for this proclamation. Our commissioners, we appreciate your recognition of this work. We indeed have an effective response that works for kids in this community. We all have a role to play, not just during April and Child Abuse Prevention Month, but throughout the year to strengthen families and to invest in them and really pour into them. So we can listen if children tell us that something's wrong. We can act responsibly and report abuse. We can talk to children about body safety. We have to have these conversations because each year we know that about 1 in 10 children face these kinds of abuse, child physical abuse and sexual abuse and others. So thank you again for this recognition. We have an incredible team working behind us, and we're grateful for the partnership with Town of Matthews. Thank you.
So with that, I'll read the proclamation. Proclamation in recognition of Child Abuse Prevention Month. Whereas children are vital to our state's future, success, prosperity, and quality of life, as well as being our most vulnerable assets. And whereas all children deserve to have safe, stable, nurturing, and healthy homes and communities that foster their well-being. And whereas child abuse and neglect can be prevented by supporting and strengthening families, thus preventing the far-reaching effects of maltreatment and providing the opportunity for children to develop healthily, trusting family bonds, and consequently building the foundations of communities. And whereas families and communities can come together to create a strong, healthy support network by providing safe and nurturing homes free of violence, abuse, and neglect, extending helping hands to children and families in need, and providing safe, child-friendly activities outside the home. And whereas effective child abuse prevention strategies succeed because of partnerships created among citizens, human service agencies, schools, faith communities, healthcare providers, civic organizations, law enforcement agencies, and the business community. Therefore, I, Mayor John F. Higdon, do hereby proclaim April as Child Abuse Prevention Month in the town of Matthews and call upon all citizens, community agencies, faith groups, medical facilities, elected leaders, and businesses to increase their participation in our efforts to support families, thereby preventing child abuse and strengthening the communities in which we live. In witness whereof, the Mayor John Higdon has hereunto set his hand and caused the seal of the town of Matthews to be affixed this 11th day of April, 2022.
Did want to mention that since our last meeting, I got exceptionally more emails than usual. I was like, what's going on? And the fact of the matter is people were all commenting on Sue Sproat retiring from COS Kids. So former Nancy Glenn Award recipient and a fantastic advocate for children in our community. And thank you so much for everything you've done. I'm going to give you a standing ovation. Be some big shoes to fill over there for sure. All right, Becky, do we have any items to be added to the agenda tonight?
No items, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Our next agenda item is public comment, and I'm going to remind several people signed up, but if you're here to speak about a zoning issue, you can do that during the public comment period for the zonings. So I'll read the rules real quickly. Anyone who's registered in advance will be able to speak first, and then anyone else in the room or audience that wishes to speak may do so. Those in the room can line up at the podium, and those in the Zoom audience can use Zoom's raise hand feature. If you're on a desktop or mobile device, click raise hand in the webinar controls, and you'll be recognized by the name listed in your Zoom window. If you join by telephone, dial *9 to raise your hand, and you'll be recognized that way. Once you're called on, please unmute yourself, turn on your camera if you have one, and state your name for the record, and then you will have 4 minutes to speak. And Maureen will call on people by their name and number if they choose that option. So the first person I have on the list tonight is Jiggy Sasha. I apologize if I murdered your name there, but.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having us. My name is Dr. Jigisha Shah, and I'm here dressed in this diverse, funny clothes. But I'm trying to make a point that this is the very first time that India Association of Charlotte is doing a regional Festival of India right in our Stump Park. And I really want to extend a heartfelt invite to Mr. Mayor, all the Board of Commissioners, and all the guests sitting here. So just to say a little bit about what the festival is about, we have been doing this festival for the last 25 years, but it has always been done at Uptown. And this is our first time to do it on a regional base. Our festival is the second largest festival that's celebrated in Charlotte. We have about 20,000 people that comes. And since the Asian Indian population is spreading, definitely in Matthews, we have about 30,000 or more of us here. It's very important that the mainstream community knows a little bit about what the Indian culture is, spread a little bit of our heritage here. So make sure you all mark your calendars. It's on 30th April from 12 to 6 at our Stumptown Park. And I have my colleague, Nikita Mittal, who's going to say a little bit more about what the festival is going to be all about. What are we going to have there? What fun stuff.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Town of Commissioners. As Jigisha said, I'm Nikita Mittal, and I'm here on behalf of India Association of Charlotte to give you a little glimpse what this festival at Stumptown Park will look like. Once you enter that park, it will have a living visual art gallery where over 30 artists, folk artists will represent their artwork. They will be there to interact, and they have created one-of-a-kind collage, a natural collage, where it will sit right in middle of the Stumptown Park, and it will be a visual to see. It contains all kind of folk arts from Asian communities. And the idea behind that collage was all those 64 canvases were sent to all the artists around Charlotte area, and they were given a theme. And they did their artwork, and it will be put together in a form of collage, and you can come and visualize and experience it. There will be other exhibits like fabrics of India. There will be a fashion show representing fabrics of India, something like this, something like this. You can experience henna tattoos. There will be artists helping you drape a sari. You can tie a turban, and there are almost around 10 food vendors selling food. And definitely we have a whole Indian bazaar set up where you can shop right from jewelry, clothing, handicrafts, and whatnot. And to top it all off, we have almost 200 dance performers performing all through the day, doing workshops where you can learn some basic dancing steps, some yoga demonstration, and all that. So we would definitely like you to reserve your day, spend your day with us on 30th April and experience it and enjoy it. And we are looking forward to have you all. Thank you. And yes.
The last word I can add is it is the cheapest way to get the feel of streets of India without spending $3,500 for the ticket. The admission is free, the parking is free, so please join us. Thank you again. Thank you, Mr.
And we have some flyers, and I'm gonna leave it here on the table if you want to take some flyers, and definitely see us at Stumptown Park on April 30th. It is from 12 p.m. to 6 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm really looking forward to that. I've had the opportunity to travel to India twice, and I love the culture and especially love the food. So I'm looking forward to that. The next person we have that signed up is Craig Siebert.
Hello, Mayor and Town Commissioners. My name's Craig Seibert. I live in Matthews, North Carolina. I'm actually a precinct chair in Matthews now, so I'm happy about that. I was looking at the agenda, and I wanted to bring up one item by way of awareness that I know is outside Matthews' jurisdiction, but it relates to the Child Abuse Prevention Month. In the state of North Carolina, we're seeing some real issues within the educational system. And I acknowledge that Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools has oversight over the schools in Matthews, North Carolina. But for awareness purposes, in the news recently out of Wilmington, North Carolina, we're seeing this introduction of gender and gender identity discussions into K1 and 2 and 3 year old or grades 1, 2, and 3. The issue down there and also in Orange County, which is also bubbling up in Wake and Mecklenburg, is they're using tools like the gender gingerbread man and the gender unicorn to introduce topics of human sexuality to kids as young as kindergartners in first and second and third grade. Again, I acknowledge that this is not currently your jurisdiction, but in light of Child Abuse Awareness Month, I think we need to remain vigilant as to what's going on in our schools in Matthews, North Carolina, hold Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools to account if this kind of stuff begins to creep to a higher level in Charlotte. And we know that there's smatterings of it that have. And so in recognition of this month, I just wanted to make those remarks. Also, as I think about this as a kind of a final thought, 110 years ago, this Friday, April 15th, is when the Titanic sunk. And the reason I bring this up is the Titanic was not sunk by an iceberg. The Titanic was sunk by hubris. One of the engineers that discussed the Titanic sinking was, this is a ship built that God couldn't even sink. And so I just would want to remind us all again, you as civil servants and us as citizens, that we need to have courage to face these cultural issues, even when they show up at Matthew's door in some future form. So those are my reflections in light of Child Abuse Prevention Month.
Thank you, Mr. Seibert. I believe everybody else that signed up with the possibility of the last one, is there a Mary? I'm sorry, I can't read your last name. Begins with a C, Mary. Callie, yes. Okay. All right. Is there anybody else in the audience tonight that would like to talk on a non-zoning application issue? And Maureen, is anybody called in? All right. We will move on then to agenda item number 8. I'll entertain a motion to recess our regular meeting for public hearings on applications to amend the Unified Development Ordinance and Land Use Map of the Town of Matthews.
So moved. Second.
A motion by Commissioner Whitley, a second by Mayor Pro Tem McCool. All in favor? All opposed? That passes unanimously. I'm sorry. That's right. Commissioner Garner.
Yes, Renee Garner.
Thank you. So that did pass unanimously. We'd like to say that we have a new time limit for public hearings. We're going to go until 10 p.m. Simply because some of these hearings have lasted until, it's like morning. And in the event that a public hearing hasn't been opened by 10 p.m., it'll be continued to our May 9th, 2022 meeting. Hopefully we won't have to enact that tonight, but I think it's best for the applicants and for the public and everyone to not be, be presenting it while we're all exhausted and struggling to stay awake. A few of these meetings have gone really, really late. I'd like to ask Jay to introduce the planning board members in attendance.
Good evening, everyone. Here in person this evening, our chair, Mike Foster, and also with us remotely, Jonathan Clayton, Tom Dorsey, Jim Johnson, Howie Labner, and Doug Rose. Thank you. Thank you.
Wow, that's great. As always, I'd like to say I appreciate all the work that our planning board does. We'll move on to 8A zoning application 2022-747 Williams Creek to change the zoning from R15 to RVS on that certain property designated as 2400 Williams Road and further being designated as tax parcel 193 531 06 07 08. Mr. Will.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, commissioners. It's good to see everyone back in person again. Excited to be here this evening. This, as the mayor said, this is a change in zoning request, application 2022-747. And I think I can just use this clicker to move forward through my. Give it a shot there. Okay. Okay. Well, we will do it the old-fashioned way. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is a rezoning from R15 to RVS. There are 3 parcels involved. The largest parcel is vacant and wooded. There are 2 smaller parcels along Williams Road that have existing single-family homes. The proposed use is single-family homes. And the applicant proposes to change the zoning from R15 to RVS for the purpose of constructing 65 single-family homes with amenities. Next slide. This is an aerial photograph of the project area showing the 3 parcels and somewhat outlined in green. And as you can see, Williams Road to the north, and to the very south is Tanfield Drive. Next slide, please. This is looking west on Williams Road, just a street view to give you an idea of that it's sparsely populated right now, mostly vacant with, as I mentioned, the 2 single-family homes. The large property is currently wooded and vacant. All 3 parcels total 22.5 acres. Directly to the south of the site is Tanfield Drive. To the north, across Williams Road, is a single-family subdivision. To the east are 2 large lot single-family homes, and to the west are more large lot single-family homes. The large lot is crossed by a creek towards the south as a natural feature of the lot. Next slide, please. So this is the proposed site plan. As I mentioned before, it's proposed to be 65 lots. That comes out to be about 2.88 units per acre. Tree save provided is per code, which turns out to be 1.803 acres. The lots closest to Williams Road, which are the ones in the north of the plan here, are going to be smaller and alley loaded. The lots closer to Tanfield Drive, which are to the south, are going to be a little bit larger, and as are the ones in the proposed cul-de-sac to the right or to the east of the plan. Open space, passive park, and a proposed walking trail and gazebo are part of the amenities that are proposed. Parking spaces for guests are provided in the denser part of the development, where the smaller lots are. That is in the northern western part of the plan. And in some of the conditions, there's a condition that parking shall not be permitted along Williams Road or along private alleys. No parking shall be permitted within 20 feet of a stop sign. They have a series of building materials that may be used in combination, including glass, brick, stone, simulated stone, precast concrete, synthetic stucco, synthetic stone, stucco, hardy plank, vinyl, ephes, or wood. And porches will be an important part of this community. Porches and stoops shall be 6 feet, at least 6 feet deep, and usable front porches will be provided. And I think we'll see some of those in the next slides. Right. So these are some conceptual elevations of what the homes may look like. As you can see in the top left would be the smaller lot homes. They're a little closer together. The other homes will be on some of the larger lots. Next slide, I think, shows just some more elevations. And next slide, please. So we reach out to CMS, and they do calculations based on the current single-family residential units that are proposed. They estimate that the development may add up to 37 students to the schools in the area. As we all know, our schools are mostly busting at the seams, so this would further increase the amount of students at Mint Hill Middle, Butler High, and Crown Point Elementary. Only Mint Hill Middle and Butler High would be over capacity at this, and they may be at this time. I don't have their current numbers, but next slide, please. And then this is just a summary of their transportation impact analysis. It shows the 2 ingress and egress points on Williams Road, and then also the connection to Tanfield Drive. It does indicate that a signal is needed at Rice Road and Sam Newell Road. And that is something that is recommended. Also, no, I just did no improvements at Tanfield Drive and some improvements at the connections to Williams Road for pedestrian and vehicular traffic. Next slide, please. Okay, so in our land use plan, Matthews, the residential varied styles, the RVS zoning district that they're going for is designed to accommodate a little bit higher density single family home options. It's ideal for development. It's an ideal development opportunity for land that prevents some environmental challenges for development, such as difficult terrain, usual partial shape, and close proximity to heavily used roadways. The town encourages the RVS development as an alternative to traditional single family housing. So that's as opposed to R15 or R12 zoning districts. RVS, you can get a little bit more creative. And additionally, the town, one of our policies is that should provide an array of housing types, densities, and locations. So in general, the proposed change in zoning is consistent with the land use plan. And although it doesn't exactly address this specific area, we have some staff concerns and outstanding issues. And actually, some of these have been addressed, and I just did not update my presentation, so I will tell you about it. No parking allowed in alleys. Additional parking needs to be accommodated for elsewhere on site. And the applicant has provided extra parking and stipulations that no parking would be allowed in the alleys. An 8-foot planting strip around the cul-de-sac has been added. Again, police had some concerns about parking, and the applicant has added visitor parking to their site plan. Staff still recommends a traffic signal at Sam Newell and Williams Road. Both Williams Road and Sam Newell and Rice and Sam Newell have a lot of intersections and crashes. And that is staff presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions. The applicant is here and does have a presentation for the board this evening.
Mayor Pro Tem McCool.
Going back to the school CMS numbers, I'm sure I've asked this before, but
Yeah.
the numbers that we get, is that including any previously approved or accepted zonings that have not yet been built, or is that just the current numbers added with this zoning petition?
That's a great question. No, it does not include what has not been built yet.
Is there, I mean, is it, I know it's tough to get those kind of numbers. Was there a way to?
We actually, we track it internally, and I can get you and the board those numbers based on school site, kind of, so like zonings that have been approved but not built, we can try, we have those numbers for you.
Yeah, I'd appreciate that, because sometimes it can compound, and we're looking at current numbers and we've approved apartments or whatever, so I appreciate it.
Yeah, we'll get those for you.
Mr. Tufano.
Hey, Rob.
Hi.
It may be in there, but I didn't see it. What is the minimum lot width on the bottom of the plot plan? Can you take a look where that right there? So in other words, the lot width at the bottom, what is that?
Okay, so toward down there where it connects to Tanfield Drive, minimum lot width, and I can't really read it right from here, but I do know that their engineer is here this evening and would be able to give you a solid number on what that average lot width is. So
Okay,
I apologize, but it is larger than, and it's very similar to what's existing on Tanfield Drive right now. And that's R9. So that lot width is about 50 feet.
And I'll ask the same question of the ones up at the top as well. So when your engineer can speak to it, that'll be good. Thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. Hoover, do you have a comment?
Hi. If you could help me, please, if I'm understanding correctly, when we first started, we had 54 units. Now we're going to 65, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
That's fine. Go ahead.
I was just going to say they have gone through a few iterations of their site plan. They originally started off with, as you said, 54. They acquired some more land and have now increased the total lots to 65.
Okay. So my questions now go to the UDO for the sewage systems for this neighborhood. According to the UDO, there has to be a letter of approval from Charlotte Mecklenburg. Do you have a letter from the engineer yet with anything on going up on these houses to this amount or?
No, we do not have a willingness to serve letter from Charlotte Water. Usually, we work with them later in the process to get that.
Would you know what the flow capacity would be for 65 homes?
I would not know.
Okay, do you know the size of the sewer line that you would need?
No, ma'am. Apologize. I'm not a civil engineer.
Right, yeah, I didn't know, where we're about with this because my concern is I see a grid where the trunk, where the lines are going to go to the main trunk and I just have concerns with this many houses going to sewer line that we need to make sure that this is taken care of. And when I don't have the answers for that, I'm just reading the UDO and what's required of the UDO. And I don't know, Jay, when is that supposed to be? When do we get to that process? I mean.
Let's come up to the mic so everyone can hear me. Typically, it's incumbent on the developer to be working with Charlotte Water from the onset of the process so that they know what capacities are at the property before it gets to this point in the process. So that coordination between those two, we get acknowledgement from Charlotte Water once the willingness to serve has been issued.
Because there's a project that came across the street from me, which was approved, and then we learned after it was approved, well, you can't hook onto the sewer line. And so they're still in, so this is why I'm questioning this, we can't approve something where if we don't have the sewer lines that we need, sewer and water lines, and just reading and learning about it. I'm all new and learning with sewer lines, but it's something we can't skip, I guess you could say. So,
Yes, you're right. That is correct.
yeah. Thank you.
Follow up on that, Jay, has Charlotte Water ever not been willing to serve any of our projects? I know Union County's had some issues.
Yes, there have been some areas right on the county line where we've got a ridge and there's fall. So there have been some projects that have kind of struggled. Some have had to put in pump or lift stations at considerable cost. And then a lot of the land along John Street on the eastern side of town hasn't seen development because there are no utilities to serve it without some very costly extensions.
Thank you. Are there any further questions for Mr. Will from the elected officials or the planning board?
Mayor, I have a question.
Go ahead. Sure.
How many houses are allowable on this property under R15? So what's the difference in units?
Oh, that's a good question, Commissioner Garner. It would really, well, your lot size would be a little bit larger. So you're looking at R15 is a 15,000 square foot lot size. It really depends on the way that the infrastructure would be laid out. So I am not exactly sure, and I'm, to be honest with you, not comfortable just making a guess because I'd have to see how the open space is a lot different. There's a lot of other factors that would go into it. So I do not know off the top of my head.
I would like to know that information if there's just a theoretical or general idea at some point, obviously not right now.
Okay. Well, the applicant is here and they may have that information with them. But I apologize, I do not.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, we have the applicants next. Paul Sagadan, Travis Gingras, and Dinesh Kumar.
Thank you, everyone. My name is Paul Saget, and I represent the petitioner, Kinger Homes. This is Williams Creek, proposal for 65 new single-family homes off of Williams and Sam Newell. Next slide, please. I believe I have all the answers to everyone's questions, so I'll try and get through those. So table of contents is showing key partners, Kinger Homes, myself, a consultant for them, and then Travis, who's our lead engineer on this project. So we'll go through talking about the location, the site, some of the community questions and feedbacks that we've had, design concepts, comparable values if we want to talk, and then there's some information on market overview. Everyone knows that Matthews is developing quickly and quite a bit. So next slide, please. Just key partners again. Next slide. In this site, you'll see off of Sam Newell and Williams. We currently, as a development team, have worked just south of it on Tanfield and Rice. And we have another piece going through a long-term development approval on Rice that we're getting right across in the park. That'll be finished soon. And why that's important is we've been waiting on that trunk line, which solves your sewer capacity question for a few years now. We put in some different pump systems and everything a few years ago. We developed some land just south of it, and the trunk line that's now been developed by the county is coming through, which connects for the capacity for those houses. So that's been working with Charlotte Water for quite a few years to go through that, to then get additional land parcels here in Matthews that were developable with city water and city sewer. Next page, please. Proposed development, I'm gonna squint on my phone instead of right on there. The proposal is for 65 detached single-family units of various sizes and designs. We will look to preserve and replant throughout the site. Currently, we're targeting about 125% of the required tree save amount. We do have traffic improvements intended with the extension of Tanfield from Rice Road to Williams Road, with a center left turn lane widening through road frontage along Williams Road, and intersection improvements at Williams and Sam Newell. And a great thing would be including turn lanes, and surprise everyone tonight, a commitment to a traffic signal at Williams and Sam Newell. Community review and commitments. We've had questions about tree screening and buffers, and we've worked with some of the neighboring parcels, providing tree buffers and both fencing and tree buffering options to provide privacy. We've also looked through that all construction traffic will be routed through access along Williams Road and not off of Rice, and that no stormwater runoff will be directed towards the neighboring properties. Going into project density, I know this was for Ms. Gardner. By right, if you take that 22.5 acres and divide it by 15,000 square foot lots, I think when that was first developed, they didn't have the same infrastructure, roads, BMPs, storm ponds, conservative areas. So by right, 15,000 square feet on that acres would allow for 65 homes. We're doing 65 homes, but also including storm retention, the stream follow through, BMPs, a walking park, paths, parking, all those things. So the density is truly the same, obviously a different configuration from a typical R15 lot. But if you took 15,000 square feet for how many lots and how much acreage, it is actually the same. So our school impact would technically be the same as well if you did that same kind of equation. In the Matthews land use plan, we know quite a bit is going on over in that area. So as far as the RVS petition, we feel that with the increased activity going along there, with the new development for the commercial over off of Rice and Sam Newell, the addition of the eventual silver line coming through, making this walkable, making it connectivity, making this more of a village atmosphere. One of the designs we have is we'll go through the comparables and look at the design, but coming along Williams will be the front porches of everything, and driving into the community will be front porches of the houses, not garages. So you really get kind of a cool village feel when you're walking through there. We want it to be connected. We want it to be walkable. We want it to be oriented towards more of a community feel. As we get back into the southern part of the community, a little bit larger lots, a little bit larger offering as far as the houses. And then design and buffers, as we mentioned, a variety of square footages, prices and design, cementitious siding. Rob took a lot of my steam there, and a focus on pitch roofs, usable porches and stoops. Next slide, please. Survey, if we want to get into it, I know people have questions on drainage and water usage and everything like that. Travis, if you want to speak a little to that and the traffic improvements. Absolutely.
Thank you, Paul. Actually, if you don't mind flipping back to the last slide, and I'll kind of orient some folks as well. So as Rob pointed out, Williams Road is planned north, and the site actually pitches from Williams Road down to the existing creek. Where the parcel thins out towards the middle of the site, that creek line is right in there. The Charlotte Water trunk line actually follows that drainage pattern. So I believe that's a 16-inch trunk main, and we would be connecting to that trunk main and going south to Tanfield and connecting the existing sewer that is along Tanfield there. And it'll take that down to the trunk line. And then as well, we'll go north from that creek line up to Williams Creek. That sewer line going both north and south will be an 8-inch line. So typically 8-inch lines roughly serve a small town or a small city, really, in that matter. So 20 to 30 to 40,000 people. So it should be substantial within this area. And as well, connecting it up to Williams will further help increase that connectivity to further increase or further connect the sewer. Next slide, Jay. So yeah, this is the overall boundary survey. As I mentioned, now we're talking plan east. So topography goes from right to left and kind of meets in the middle down at that creek. Next slide. Traffic improvements. So on the north part of this part of the plan there, that top image, that is Williams Road, and we will be proposing a left turn lane into the 2 access points along Williams, and then as well there'll be another left turn onto Dunswood Road, which will be the road adjacent to our leftmost access point. And then as well, the image to the south there, that is Williams and Sam Newell. They'll be proposed on Williams. There'll be a center left turn lane, and then as well the right turn lane, and then coming on plan south, obviously you've got the through lane onto Williams, and then as well on Sam Newell, there'll be a left turn lane along Sam Newell to get into Williams Road. Next slide.
And please, just a side note to what Travis just talked about, those plans as far as the traffic and improvements have been worked through a TIA, which is a traffic impact analysis, working through CDOT, NCDOT, and Matthews City Engineering to get to that point. So we've been through a few iterations of that to get to the result that they had requested and have come to an agreement on that. Design concept and comparables. If we stay on this page, this is just a little bit of a preview. We're still working through elevations and the madness that it is to create the front of a house. And right here, we're just showing what the front porches would look like if you're driving down Williams or driving into the community instead of having driveways or a bunch of excess parking. We've got one request from the town to have a little bit more parking, and we're at 4.5 parking spots per house for the overall development, where each house will have a 2-car garage, a 2-car driveway, and then we have 30 some odd additional spots throughout the community to service that. So we're over parked for what it is typically of a new development in town. So we've tried to take that in consideration for the development of this and create that. And then going back into the larger part of the neighborhood, just a little bit bigger lots, a little bit bigger houses. We are planning to, next slide, a few more elevations. As you see, we're still deciding on some styles and looks. Next slide. Sales comparables. Matthews has been great. So we feel values are there from a whole lot of standpoint. We feel we're going to end up in the 4s to 500s, depending on the sizes of the houses. Next slide. And just a couple of project highlights just to kind of conclude before there's any questions. 65 single family homes, site acreage of about 22.5 acres, diverse product offering, ranch homes, rear load, front porch design, and classic single family, 3 to 4, some 5-bedroom, potentially 2.5 to 3.5, and all will have 2-car garages and 2-car driveways. Approximate square footage anywhere from 2,200 to 3,600. And as we show a parking count, we're showing roughly 33 extra spots beyond the 2-car drive, 2-car garage. So we're about 4.5 spots overall. Project construction period, 24 to 30 months, and projected pricing in the 400s to 500s. Next slide, please. And this is a brief timeline. Zoning, if we're still fortunate, targeted through April, hopefully for approval, and city council approval the month after. Civil engineering takes us another 6-8 months. Site development, another, would start right after that approval, probably about 10 months through actual site development and completion, depending on approvals through the city. And then first units delivered about 6 months after that. We would then construct at roughly 6 to 8 units a month, and then hopefully finish out in the spring of 2025. And the rest of this is just market data if people want to look through it, but open for any questions, whatever we have.
Commissioner Tufano?
Yes, you're absolutely correct. By right, 65 homes, but that's using every single square inch. So what would it be with the roads and the proper retention ponds and all of that? If you left it R15, what would be the number of homes that you could put in there?
So we didn't run that exercise because it doesn't work. I mean, I think we'd probably be in the 30s or something like that, 30s to 40, as far as what they can be. And we've definitely seen over time when we look at that square footage of how it's developed, the standards at which those were given years ago don't account for the standards of what are now in there, and the variable tree saves, roads, BMP improvements, community spaces, those weren't included in some of that sectioning, but it probably in the high 30s, low 40s would be the yield.
Okay, and also I'm having difficulty visualizing these kitty corner sort of arrangement up there at the top where they're right up against each other. Do you have any renderings of that?
This front section here?
Where these homes are at an angle and they're with each other, you see? Yeah. Oh, I see. You're not actually having it that way.
Oh, yeah. Those are just notes.
Oh, I
Yeah,
see.
those are just notes. Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Any other questions for the applicants from the elected officials or the planning board?
Oh, one more. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
The minimum lot width of any of the lots on the property?
Yeah, roughly in the smaller section where they're the village style with that front porch, 40 by 120, and then 55 to 60 by 120 for the rest of the lots, which is similar to the R9 neighborhood we did just south of it.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Urban?
So Paul, bear with me. Good presentation.
Yeah. Thanks.
I've got a list of notes here in this particular area. There was a presentation you made some time ago, or actually it was some site plans that we had seen where you had a significant tree save, or actually a park that was butted up against Williams Road. Do you recall that one? Basically where those all those homes, so to speak, that are sandwiched between those two roads coming in, there was a significant green space.
Initially, that wasn't a park, that was other owned land. So we just recently came into agreement on that parcel and then absorbed it. Otherwise, that was going to be just someone's house. So
Okay.
that was previously.
Well,
not.
too bad, because I like that.
Okay,
so
previously we didn't.
I mean,
in the plan we do have a park. It's just
yeah,
more in
but
the
it's a park that's internal to the development. It's a park. It's got parking around it, so it's not really a friendly park from that aspect of it. Let me talk about the context. The Tanfield side, which you developed several years ago, makes sense in the context of the street. Those are probably 50-foot wide lots, would be my guess. So contextually, you're keeping in kind there. Now, what the problem is when you flip to the other side in Williams Road has a very interesting context. Williams Road is, for lack of a better word, a connector between Rice and Sam Newell. And anybody that lives in the area listens to that one particular Mustang and Dodge Charger every night at 10 o'clock or at 6 o'clock in the morning racing down Sam Newell. So it's not a pedestrian-friendly street in which you want houses to face on. All the developments, except for some exceptions on Williams Road, you have buffering and then you enter the development. No developments face onto Williams Road. So that would be my first problem here, is the fact, and that's why I like that park, which was a house, was you would create that level of buffer, and you would then reflect more the context of how that street relates from houses to Williams Road. So I really encourage you to drive that, and you'll notice, Williams Crossing and Matthews Commons and stuff like that, how all those roads come off of Williams and then the houses start from that aspect of it. But let me work through my list here. So yeah, the 65 homes, Commissioner Tufano is absolutely correct. You take away all those encumbrances, roads, infrastructure, right-of-ways, storm drainage, et cetera, that R15 number would drop down dramatically, obviously, from that standpoint. We know about the 39 students coming to CMS potentially. And I've been on this board many, many years, and I hate snout houses. Unfortunately, there's snout houses in developments in off of Williams Road. But there are the ability to break down that snout house by pulling the entry forward of the garage, breaking a two-car garage into two single-car garages, doing a brise soleil or a pergola over top of those garages. As soon as you see a snout house, it's indicative. You can sell for $400,000 or $500,000, but it's indicative of, to me, not a thoughtful plan. It's a builder's first go-to. You've got the raised porch. I'm assuming that commitment is in the documents. Porches are raised, so you have several series of steps. You've made a note about the 6-foot porches, so that's documented. That's good. It looks like you took to heart the public. Well, repeat your statement. You said something about traffic signals, Sam Newell and Williams. Is that a commitment?
It is commitment based on the plan we're putting forward. Yeah.
Okay. I like that commitment, regardless of where the plan ends up, but keep going. I'll keep going.
Thank you.
So, and Public Works is recommended, and it seemed like Public Works was recommending on either or. Was it, Jay, was that Williams and Sam Newell and or Rice, or was it, where's Susan?
I think Rice is in commitment to the other development that's happening down there, because I
saw both in combination or some thereof. Okay. I've already talked about, I like that plan of that was a house, you said, a park along that edge, because not only would it benefit that neighborhood, it would be a great benefit to all those neighborhoods that walk down Williams Road to get some reprieve. That would be an excellent idea. And the mayor doesn't chime into this, I'll chime in for him. It's whatever, is a better use of tree save. We are absolutely tired of the sort of edges of trees around the perimeter, and that's about it. And you have an opportunity, I'm really well aware of this street, of some large trees, being able to sort of cluster homes around those trees and do things to mitigate that, and have a better approach to tree save as opposed pushing everything to the edges from that standpoint.
One quick note, Joe, as you'll see through there along that stream bed, one of the nice things is with that non-disturbable buffer area, that there's going to set a real nice tree line all the way through that people can enjoy. So that one of the reasons we set that park through there is to take advantage of, to embrace the topography, embrace the community, where you already can't touch that buffer. So we put green space along with it. So when people go down, there's that walking path over there. You can park, you can walk. There'll be sidewalks through here now. You can walk down through here and get to that path, get to that area and enjoy the trees.
I will grant you that, but the reality is I live only about a half mile from this site, and that stream runs back past my house or whatever, and no one walks through there. There's vermin and snakes and all sorts of things. So you can do whatever you want, but I don't think anybody except with high wading boots is going to traverse back through there. My point is those vast bastions of areas where you've got the houses is okay, a house drops out and you got a green space between them, whatever. I think we really have to come to grips with what is RVS versus anything else. And let's be frank, your other project on Rice Road, not Tanfield, we all really liked. It had a really unique way of integrating the green space with the houses, and it was very generous on the green space. This one is more of a, be very frank, it's an accounting exercise. and I know that the owner of the property is probably like, I want top dollar, top dollar, top dollar, but at some point there's got to be a little bit of give and take from that standpoint. But let me finish my notes here. All the developments on Williams Road or Peralta Street. Talk about the line. You've mentioned the types of architecture. That's fine. I think my only last comment is you have, for the I'm old, but not that old, but the Little Rascals, there was a dog called Petey, and you've got a house rendering or an elevation that reminds me of Petey.
A little black eye.
It's got a black eye. Yeah, get rid of that. I mean, either do it well or get rid of it. It just reminds me of Petey. So I just have a pet peeve about that one. But anyway, I mean, I think there's some work to be done here because you've got the Tanfield extension making some sense, but when it flips over that ridge and goes on the Williams Road, the context of how that street is set up is different. And I really don't think having those houses facing, I'm all for density in the right place in the right way. And I like your cottage designs and all, but that's not Williams Road. That's John Street with 10-foot wide multi-use paths and big green spaces and stuff like that, and a speed limit of 25 miles an hour. Unfortunately, Williams Road, they use in a high-speed format, and you're not going to get families to buy along there. They're going to buy it, they're going to be very disappointed. So I think we have some work here. End of my end of points. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Urban. Is there anyone else that would like to, Mike?
Can you equate square footage of the lot size to percentage of an acre? A little easier for most of us to understand what that equates.
Yeah, it's 60 now. I could use my calculator. I could do it a lot better. Point 0.16.
That's why I asked 15,000 square feet sounds like a lot. 0.16 of an acre does not.
So yeah, 15,000.33. So roughly a half of that third, which as we shared accommodates what you have to do to develop an entire community these days with, as you said, bigger parks, more green space, more connectivity, more walkability, BMP, storm ponds. The list is a little bit endless, but we understand that sometimes it's not what people want to hear, but that part of the development does take up quite a bit of land.
Mr. Urban, do you have a follow-up?
Thank you.
Yeah, and the follow-up on the architecture aspect of it, we see all the pretty front elevations, and this as well as I do. I've said it many, many times is, when a house turns a corner or it sits on a corner lot, is a porch wrapping the corner? Are we going to end up with blind sides of homes facing side streets and stuff like that? So every time you make a maneuver, I think it needs to respond to that. And most developers don't, but I'm not going to give up on these discussion points. I think we have to continually look at those things. So when someone drives into this development, that porch is turning around the corner and it makes for a really welcoming gesture. It's just not, oh, look at that, no windows, all siding, wonderful. Again, that's another one of my pet peeves. So I feel rather cranky tonight. So let's go ahead and keep going at it. Thank you.
I have a comment, Mayor.
Go ahead.
I think we have a lot of developments coming and changing from a residential to an RVS. And the intention of RVS is to create a housing style that's diverse and different from what we have. But I feel like I just want to make the point, and I think that Commissioner Urban was touching on this, that homes on smaller lots, selling in the 400s is probably not that different from a lot of what we have, except that the lots are smaller. And I'm not sure that to me meets the sort of the intent of having a RVS district.
You guys care to respond to that?
So RVS has been interesting. We've been going through it in a couple different projects over a couple of years, and part of it has been density, styling, walkability. Like we said, we've tried to approach it from like a village type atmosphere, giving it green space, giving it some walkability. What we hoped, a park space where it could be a little more community oriented. I don't know. We have a great definition of what RVS is truly intended for either. So could it be a mix of townhomes, duplexes, single family, bigger lots, you know, how palatable is that as well? So I think, you know, density breeds value typically. So, you know, there's that approach where we said, well, if we could bring more value, if that's your question of more value orientation, well, it comes with density. Everybody knows that the price of land, the price of development, the price of building a house is extreme. So when we ask about RVS or more lots, it's part of it is to the economics of trying to deliver housing to an area. When we last did Tanfield, we were probably $100,000 less than the given market. We've targeted a 400 to 500. We're up the block. They're already 550 to 650. So, you know, we're trying to do everything we can. We've got Rice Road. We've got things that we're working on in Matthews, trying to provide something, but density speaks to that, and value orientation has changed in the last 12 months, 24, 36, 5 years, where it's become what was just doesn't exist. So we're open to suggestions as far as what that could be, you know, for dynamic, but smaller lots with what would be now the new affordability for Matthews or Charlotte or the surrounding is what we're trying to commit to. It's just a different number now. So, you know, if it's more dense product and more diversity in that product, we could commit to that. It's we're happy to deliver whatever product that is. We're pretty nimble.
Mayor Pro Tem McCool.
You kind of touched on this, but I ask in most developments, there a affordable housing component of this project?
There is not at this time now.
If it's okay, I'd like to follow up on my question.
Sure, go ahead.
I mean, I think you're really touching on some exciting ideas that we keep talking about, maybe not as an entire board, but when I go in and meet with developers with another commissioner or two, and developing something that's more of the style of Elizabeth or Dilworth, where there are single family homes mixed with more dense, like duplexes and quads. You can have a more affordable home. If you consider 400 affordable, then I mean, I think, you know, even as somebody in my 40s and mid-career, $400,000 is not affordable to my family. And what we need are a variety of housing price points that maybe a little creativity in this plan could bring to Matthews. And that to me would meet that RVS standard.
Okay, no, that's great. I mean, that's kind of reflection we need on some of this, because that smaller, denser area there is particularly to try and find a more of an entry point. As just the entry point has, you know, that keeps changing, you know, for what we're trying to do. So we're open to those suggestions in that development.
Yeah, just to echo on that, we have as a board, different boards through the years have toured some pretty innovative developments, and in particular, what Commissioner Garner mentioned, perhaps having a quadruplex or something where, you know, you can have there's some neighborhoods where you don't know it's a quadruplex, but there's actually 4 families living in something that looks like a single family house, and it's much more affordable. I too struggle at my age there's not a lot of great things about having gray hair and being old, but one of them is that my house is nearly paid for, and I don't have to worry. I can imagine being in my 20s and having to pay $400,000 for a house would be a pretty daunting task. The other comment I want to make to follow up on something Commissioner Urban said, I ironically spoke with him about a week ago. There was a development in Union County that will remain nameless, but it's like snout house heaven. I mean, there's just nothing but snout houses, and they are particularly unattractive in my view, and I shared that with Commissioner Urban. So yeah, those we're not real fans of in general. Is there anybody else that would like to make a comment? I'm sorry, those of you on the planning board, I don't have your cameras on, so I can't see. I'm going to call on the public in just a minute, but anybody on the planning board have a comment, just speak up, or a question? All right, hearing none. We're going to go back to the public comment. And I'll just call on some folks that signed up earlier. We'll start with Travis Gingras.
He's with us.
I'm sorry. You are Travis Gingras. And Paul. Okay, you guys. Okay, sorry about that. Christy Honeycutt.
Thank you so much for giving me a few minutes of your time today. I appreciate your patience. That little dark dot in the middle that looks like a pentagon is my property. And I bought it in 2005, turned it into a horse farm, rode in Europe and New York, and brought a German warm blood back with me. He's very near and dear to my heart, I have to say. This community is very impactful. One way that it's mostly impactful is this gorgeous walking trail is right over my property on the other side of the creek. So it's kind of using my property as, say, sightseeing. When they originally put in the houses in Tannefield, which are not depicted here, I immediately had trespassers. And that's just very dangerous for my horses, essentially. I've been before the board in 2006 to get my property approved, and I haven't been before the board since then. So I met with Paul and Dinesh. They were kind enough to come to my property. I've asked about a privacy fence around my property that would prevent these trespassers. The numbers that we would be talking about with the development like this are, horse people don't put their properties up against a neighborhood like this. I have a pretty good relationship with my neighbors back here. I have trespassing incidences when houses change hands typically. And so in this case, the density concerns me for one. So I'm asking for a 6-foot PVC privacy fence around my property. Where that becomes somewhat of a problem is the creek area. So I don't have that space to put it on my land. There is a property that sets precedent, and that is Tennyson, that is about 1/6 of a mile from my property as you go on Samuel Road. They have put up white PVC fencing that they maintain on their property. And that's what I'm requesting of the developer as well. That may pose some issues right there at the creek. I'm okay if that's a different type of fencing, just as long as it's not crossable to get into my land. So originally with the Tannefield extension that they did, the trespassers came right over the creek on my land, and there's no bridge there. I mean, they popped right over. You're talking about the snakes, et cetera. They were not in the least bit intimidated to get to my borders. So fencing is one concern. And then I've consulted with a DC environmentalist. He's a commercial environmentalist, and he's very concerned about the topography and the line of houses in the cul-de-sacs, as well as the ones coming from Williams Road on the rightmost side, that all of those will drain backwards into my property. So I've consulted with Public Works, and they're talking 30-some thousand for me to hook to the sewer line. That's like a $7,000 hookup fee, $23,000 in sewage to get over the creek, sewer line to get over the creek. So I'm sorry, let me see what else I've got here for you. Concerned about pollution with that runoff. I have a pond that's aerated that has fish in it. I have wildlife, of course, deer, and I'm sure they'll be vacating, but waterfowl as well in that area. And I just don't want a polluted pond, and my pastures actually butt up to those borders at the top as well as the sides all the way down to the creek. And I'm concerned about fertilizers, anything that people would use on their yard that might fall downward naturally from the topography and hit my pastures. Then the other thing is I talked originally to Dinesh about setbacks. If you look at the neighborhood on the right, which is an existing neighborhood, I'm not sure when it was built, but I think maybe in the 90s, their setbacks, according to Dinesh, are around 65 to 70 feet. And so what I've requested is, hey, if this is the standard that I bought into, could we preserve that around my property? So looking at the cul-de-sac and the houses on the left, I'm asking for a 65 foot setback from my border. These are just soft negotiations with the developer that I'm bringing to the board because of the impact to my property. I've already had one person that was interested in the sale of my property because this is not desirable to stay in this area, typically just the dangers of it. And as soon as they knew that a developer was coming in and we looked at the site plan, they were not interested. They were interested in $1 million before the site plan hit. So I don't want to move. I really love my home in this area in Matthews and the community. But I do need to protect my borders here and my investment as well. Let's see.
Ms. Honeycutt, how large is your property?
It is, there is some land trading that was done with Mr. Hagler. So the original parcel was 3.25, and then we traded the non-buildable creek land, which is in the rightmost corner of that little pentagon, for land that you see on it's a dotted land that's a tree save now. It's a little flag up there on the top right of my property that is actually part of the development. We traded that, Linda Hagler and I did, because she needed buildable land and I needed pasture. So it actually increased the size of my property without giving up any buildable land. So I would say close to 3.5, maybe. It will be resurveyed at the sale. Both Linda and I agreed we did not want to tackle the cost of surveying. So when the land was changing hands, that was what was going to happen. Originally, when I bought in 2005, Ms. Hagler said, I will not sell in my lifetime. I will pass this on to my children. I don't need the money for it. And I think she's in her early 70s or mid 70s and very healthy. So it wasn't my intention to buy in and develop so heavily to then be facing a development around me. But everybody has the right to sell and use their land as they choose, as the board agrees. What I'd like to say, this is just different maybe from the concerns to me, but looking at Matthews as a whole, with the development above the Tannefield houses, I mean, I call them the 50 Shades of Gray with no steam. They are so monochromatic. I don't think they do Matthews justice. And then when I saw the exteriors that they came up with for the neighborhood, I mean, the big lot exteriors, they've got really some sass and some interest to them. On this, when I was relating to Tennyson, which is on Sam Newell, they're also very monochromatic, but very well built inside. So there's value there. They're starting at 5s and going up in the 600,000s. So I'm concerned about the look of the houses, because the smaller houses, that's my entrance. I will come in on Williams Road and all I see is these small garden homes where we see everywhere. It doesn't say come live in Matthews. There's anything unique about it. It says here's another row of static development. And I just would like to think that we would ask more of our developers, because there's so many new amazing materials out there. I don't even mind the peat house because at least it's some interest. You know, that industrial farmhouse is a departure from the white, the gray, no amenity type farmhouse. But I think that's everything. Setbacks, fencing is very important to me. Protecting my property, the value of my property, the pollution around my property. I did send several emails. I don't know if you can pull them up. Do you pull them up? I'm sorry, do people give you presentations? I've never done this before. I just sent emails to the board of pictures of my actual property, boundaries, the fence line. You can't pull those up. Okay, I can, sorry. So those will be available, I guess, in your public comment there. I've sent emails starting with this process almost a year ago up until now, really talking about these things, but I also showed you pictures of the vinyl fence that Tennyson put up that's hundreds of linear feet for both houses on the right and the left side. And I did confirm with them that the developers put it up and it is on development land. It's not on the houses that existed on the right and the left. Are there any questions for me? Yes, sir.
This is just a matter of curiosity. How do you get to that piece of land?
Well, it's a gorgeous, I actually sent the video of how you get in. It is a gorgeous drive through large timber. It's about 800 linear feet. And we walk our horses down it and our dogs down it right now. And it is incredible.
So it connects directly to Williams Road from
Directly
there?
to Williams Road.
I'm going to have to
Exactly.
take a ride out there and take a look.
You are so welcome. Yes. As you see where their drive is coming in on the right side, that is really my drive, essentially. And it just curves right down. And the white spot that you see in my property is an arena that I just built in 2019. So I am a nurse. This has been my life dream since I was 4. I said, I want to have my horses in my backyard. And this is it. I've been very blessed.
Thank you.
You have my pictures. Thank you. All right. So here we go. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. So this is an example of what Tennyson put up. That's their white PVC fence. And I have two videos too showing and so the rightmost one is just going back. The other one shows the burn, which is what my environmentalist is recommending, is a burn with trees with a fence to protect my property from downward flow of water. Because there's no, like I said, there's no sewer line on the back of these properties. I expect quite a bit of runoff. I do have a pond that will naturally collect some of it, but both the rings are engineered by a really good designer. They flow into the pond and off to the offset of the property. That's okay. That's okay. At least we know they have them. Did you have the two videos too? They were just sent within the last hour, I would say, from the same address. Okay. So I'm pretty tight-knit with the members of the equestrian community, and most of us have been going farther and farther out of town. And I was just very lucky. I raised two very small children and went to Mint Hill Middle and Butler and stayed on this side of town and was able to have my horses within a region where I could work. So, and you all approved a barn for me. Thank you very much. And I think 2007, it needed a little bit of a variance because it was 1,600 square feet at the time. Here we are. So this is the drive that you were asking about. It's really gorgeous with high timber that will not be there with the development, of course. Then as you come down, there's a topographical change here. And on the right, the Silverstone is my arena. On the left is the pasture. This is super. Thank you so much. There is a small Victorian guest house on the left. That's the house that you're seeing. It's a little 1-bedroom. And then straight ahead is my main house that was built by the Hagler family in '86. On the right is a gazebo, and that drops off to the pond. And it'll swing around a minute and show you the barn on the left. And everything below it is the pastures. And as you look straight through this image, behind the house is where they're talking about putting their walking trails that will overlook my pastures. When the city put in the sewer line, we negotiated a price of $2,000 for me to take my horses off the property when they drop the trees for the sewer line. So your negotiator, I was only paid like maybe $1,000, something very inconsequential for the sewer line land itself that we negotiated, but $2,000 was for me to take the horses off the property because it's so frightful for them to see, large trees drop all around them. They don't have any meaning to that. So for 3 months, I took my horses off the property while the sewers were being built.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Honeycutt.
Thank
We have
you.
Another, are you finished?
Yes, sir. Thank
Okay,
you.
Thank you very much. You have a beautiful piece of property there.
Thank you.
Very nice. Looks like Colorado or something. Mary Kelly.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. Good evening to the developers too. I live in Dunwood Hills, and I've been here only a short time, 2 years, but one of the reasons why I came was because it was so bucolic and a lovely area to be in. My concern is, and those of my neighbors who are not here this evening, is really the traffic pattern and the congestion that we're going to have with this development. We have Tennyson right now, which is not fully built yet. My concern in the morning, it can take me 15 minutes to wait to get onto Sam Newell just because of the traffic. And I feel that even with lights, it's going to back up to Margaret Wallace. It will back up to Rice and may even be worse. So my neighbors and I have wanted to speak about this and our concern just regarding the traffic pattern and congestion. And the same on Williams as well. Right now, Williams has been fine, no issue. But I think with all the congestion that will come about, with more housing being built, we will have a big problem going forward. So I just wanted to express our concerns from the community and see what can we do about this congestion with the traffic from both these developments.
Thank you, Ms. Kelly.
Any comments from anyone?
I think
Or the
everybody agrees
developers,
traffic is
anything
bad.
that we can talk about?
Thank you, everybody. So as far as the traffic improvements, we've gone through the TIA study, the traffic impact analysis. We've worked with city engineering. We've worked with DOT and NCDOT to come up with what they see as the most formulated plan. So what they've asked for as far as the turn lanes, the full access movement and the street light, we've said if this plan can work with the city, this is a plan we can get behind, and we've committed to all of their suggestions and all of their pieces of the traffic puzzle. So, we certainly understand the concerns for traffic. We certainly understand that there's some major bypass arteries and future development for this area of what, would, should happen. We can't commit to those, but at this point, we've given a commitment to everything that they've asked from us, as far as the development for roads and traffic improvements.
I think also it's the density that will be on Williams as well, with
Sure.
these homes facing it, which we don't have now. It's pretty much ranch homes and 2-acre properties. So that's been another concern with the developments that I know.
Yeah, no, we certainly understand. And as we mentioned, and Gardner, who was, I lost her on there, but oh no, she's on the top there. So, it comes in contradiction. We talk about, I think there's a mention of value. I'm worried about value, and the homes aren't big enough and the homes aren't grand enough, and they're not $700,000, $800,000. And then we hear from council in the city, why isn't there more affordability? Why isn't there more diversity in product? And those don't meet. They never meet. So it's tough to be in that position. We come from value orientation. We try and put enough housing on there so people can be in neighborhoods and have that opportunity. We try and, like I said, you saw the plan, build parks, walking connectivity. I know Christy talked about some of the high timbers. If you note where that park will actually be, it's downstream. If you ever go look at that property, it's a deep drop, a stream, and a high incline from that. So that same timber that we all love in that area now would be on the other side of that, where the path would be on the other side, where the park would be on the other side. So, we hate to disturb people, we hate to disturb communities, but at the same time, Charlotte's growing, Matthews is growing, and people are trying to live in places where there is still greenery, where there is still a park, where they still can get out and walk, where they can have some form of affordability. And, unfortunately, like I said, those paths just don't match. So, we'd love to just build a big mansion here and there, but that doesn't meet a need of anything either. So, it's tough. It's tough from the developer standpoint to say we can meet all these needs. More diversity in the product we could certainly do, but when we talk to that, we're talking a little more dense. Maybe we could put more green space, come out with the same amount of units, more green space, more flexibility in that, but still the amount of units to do the improvements, to commit to street improvements, traffic improvements, widening of streets, traffic lights is really a daunting process. So, we hope that we can work with everybody to get to something amicable, because it is a difficult science to make all those numbers work.
Thank you, Mr.
understand the
Saginaw.
Financial perspective, believe me,
Yes,
in
ma'am.
finance.
Sure.
But is there any way to even make the setbacks off of Williams? Because it looks so close to the road right now.
Yeah, we're going to work on that. We have a setback from there, and we'll work on that per suggestion of everybody. We'll get back to work.
Are you able to do less housing on there? Or is that
I'm sorry,
something-
Ms. Kelly, we
Yeah.
can't debate these issues right
We'll
now.
take it to the side.
This is just a
We're
public
good if
hearing.
there's no more questions for us, and we'll talk to the neighbors.
All right, Maureen, has anybody expressed an interest in the Zoom audience of asking any questions?
Can I ask just one quick question,
Sure.
of Jay? Jay, is this area of property have anything to do with the flexible design standards?
Yes, the applicant has that ability to utilize flexible design standards in the RVS district.
Because it says in the UDO that we recommend that RVS for flexible design standards don't exceed 10 acres. It's just a recommendation. All right, just wanted to make everyone aware of that. Thank you.
All right. Ms. Honeycutt, you have another comment?
Just a great example of the use of that kind of housing is Beverly Crest. They put on Providence Road, they put in apartments that were attached almost, or homes that were attached. And then they put in really nice big homes on good lots. And then they had, so it's like 3 tiers almost of garden home, big home, and houses that were dense, and then they put in a pool. And I asked the developers, why not a pool? We don't have anything like that in this area. That would certainly be unique. But they did the apartments offset around the pool. So just a thought.
Thank you. This application will be heard by the planning board on April 26th and come back to this board at our May 9th meeting. Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Move on to the next item, zoning application 2022-75 dynamic LED supply to change the condition on that certain I-1 CD district located at 10718 Monroe Road and further being tax parcel 213-01228 to add additional permitted uses.
And good evening. I'm thinking this may not take as long as the last one, hopefully. If you could move me forward there, someone. The same thing happened last time. It started working, then it didn't. Can you go ahead and advance so I can? Okay, this is at 10718 Monroe Road, as you just said. The owner applicant is Dynamic LED Supply. The existing zoning is I-1 CD and the proposed zoning is also I-1 CD. They're really just looking for a change in conditions. Right now, the building houses an upholstery store, which is not currently an allowed use. And they want to change and add some uses, including an upholstery. So they're proposing that additional uses be allowed on the property to make it more economically viable. And there are no site plan changes proposed as a part of the application. And that's just the aerial. You can see where it is. You can go ahead. These are just some street views. You can see it's just a typical building along Monroe Road. And again, nothing about the building itself. It's proposed to be changed. It's just the uses in the building. So it's 0.64 acres. It's currently developed and being used as an upholstery store. The previous zoning actions, the original zoning change was approved in 1995, and it was very, very specific. It was to enable the petitioner to sell and repair personal watercraft and motorcycles in addition to power and lawn equipment and things related to that. And then also studios for artists, designers, photographers, musicians, sculptors, and gymnasts, greenhouses and nurseries. So it really was very specific, I think, to having watercraft and motorcycles. So they're proposing a number of additional uses, including, again, upholstering in a workroom setting not to exceed 1,500 square feet, retail sales for general merchandise, manufacturing, processing, assembling of components into completed craft or custom-made items and facilities not exceeding 3,000 square feet, copy printing and photo processing, building material storage and wholesale and retail sales without outdoor storage, bakery retail, including manufacturing of goods for sale on premises only, sign manufacturer, and professional, financial, personal, and recreational services not otherwise listed. For the land use plan, I'm really going to the Monroe Road Small Area Plan, which is a part of the land use plan. That calls for commercial mixed use for this portion of the corridor. And as far as being consistent, it's an expansion of the commercial use there. And I'm going to say this probably every page. It's not going to change the site plan at all. It's not going to change the building at all. This property has had issues for years now because of the restricted uses there. I think it's been a code enforcement issue for quite some time with a use going in that's not allowed. And the town has actually been encouraging them to come in for a change of conditions for some time now. And this is the first applicant we've had. So we think it's reasonable to expand the uses from those very limited ones that were approved. And again, I'll say there's not a site plan change attached to this. If anything is change on the property itself, they would have to come back for another change in conditions. And there were no concerns from anyone. And we should have the applicant here or on Zoom. She's here. She doesn't have a presentation, but she can answer any questions that you have.
All right, thank you. Lita King. is the applicant. So do we have any comments or questions from the board? Commissioner Urban?
Is the only parking, I see stuff in the back, obviously, but the parking is along the road.
It is.
Does that attribute to the requirements they need for these general uses? Or can that parking be eliminated and they can park down the side and the rear? I mean, are those 5 or 6
I think
spaces?
those probably are required. I mean, they should, would you say they should probably stay? You're saying handicapped accessible spaces near the front entrance would be important to keep those in front.
Oh, so you say, okay, Jay. Yeah, I mean, they have to be with a reasonable accommodation, but the handicap entrance could be anywhere on the building access. So, okay, I mean, this is kind of a quandary because in some respects, I think it has a lot to do with the sort of the appeal of the building and people wanting to sort of address leasing there and renting there. But then again, they're stuck between the mini storage and point blank range. It's a lot that's kind of small for any viable type of structure. So, I mean, I guess the key is to allow some uses to see if you can't make it work. And if it doesn't work, maybe it's subject to some other kind of redevelopment piece.
I would assume in the future, eventually in the future, it will probably.
Yeah,
be
I would
subject
think it's going to be under
redevelopment.
pressure for that. Thank you. Thank you, Nadine.
Any questions or comments from elected officials or the planning board?
Okay, sure.
All right, I'm not seeing any. Maureen, do we have anybody from the public that has raised their hand in Zoom? Or called in? Okay. All right, this application will be heard by the planning board on April 26th and come back to this board on May 9th. Thank you. Move on to item C, Commissioner Whitley.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to be excused for the next 2 zoning applications.
Okay, Commissioner Whitley is recused from the next 2 items, items C and D. Item C is zoning application 2022-754 CRC text amendment to change the text of the CRC district to allow independent living facilities, to establish required parking for independent living facilities in the CRC, and to allow an increase in the height limitations for independent living facilities in the CRC district. Mr. Will, you're going to present this, sir?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, so we have a number of, well, maybe 3 or 4 text amendments to the CRC zoning district that have been applied for. I have to take off my glasses to see my notes here. Excuse me. So the first text amendment is to allow the use independent living facilities, which is a separate use on our permitted use table in the CRC district. You may recall a couple months ago, maybe 6, we had the independent living facilities is defined separately in our code. And that's why it is a separate use. It is for senior living. And I think we had some text changes with regard to that again, about 6 months ago on Idlewild with the Arden. It's now called the Arden and Matthews. So that's what independent living facilities means, because I'm going to refer to it over and over again, and there's a reason for that. So to add independent living facilities as a permitted with conditions in the CRC zoning district is first zoning amendment, text amendment. Secondly, applicable standards. Now I'm going to move this. Secondly is to amend section 155, 506, 16A to include the minimum lot area of independent living facilities from 5 acres to 4 acres. Again, right now it is limited to a 5-acre tract. The applicant is interested in reducing that to 4, and to increase the minimum gross units per acre from 20 to 25. And additionally, there's a requested text amendment to reduce setbacks. Right now, the code refers to setbacks at 20 feet, side yard of 10, minimum rear yard of 30. And I apologize. That is what the applicant is asking for right now. The minimum lot area is 5 acres. Minimum front side yard setback shall be 50 feet. And then finally, text amendment, or not finally, excuse me, text amendment number 2 has to do with required parking. Right now, independent living facilities require 1.1 parking spaces per each unit, plus 1 space per 2 employees of the shift of greatest employment. What the proposed text amendment would lower the parking ratio from 1.1 to 1 parking space per independent living unit, and keep the 1 space per 2 employees of shift of greatest employment. And last but not least, the third text amendment is for increasing the height of only independent living facilities in the CRC district from 35 feet, which is the current limit, up to 53 feet, which would only be for independent living facilities, not for your single family house. I'll be happy to answer any questions, clarifications from the board or the planning board at this time. The applicant is also here and they do have a presentation.
Commissioner Urban?
So Rob, has staff rifled through these? Well, I'm sure you have, but I mean, has staff looked at sort of the unintended consequences, meaning of other properties that may go after an independent living type of scenario, looked at the locations, looked at, how 53 feet could be impacted, how parking could be impacted and things like that. So do you have that synopsis you could share with us? Not tonight, but I mean, something you could email to us and say, we've looked at all these other parcels and here's the pros and cons of this.
Yes, absolutely. I have done a sort of a cursory review of that. So I don't have anything, but I can have a synopsis for you to get to the board, including what parcels it would impact. That would be, the over 4 acres, because if it's over 4 acres, then it would qualify. If it's under, it wouldn't. So yeah, there's some.
I'd appreciate that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions, comments? Hearing none. Rob, who do you have for the applicants? Who's going to present?
Lee Cochran is here.
Mr. Cochran, welcome, sir.
The stage is yours, sir.
I'll do my best. I do, yes. While he's doing that, I'll introduce myself. My name's Lee Cochran. I'm Senior VP for Development for Laurel Street. Very happy to be here. I think the last time I was here was on my kids' field trips. And they came to the town of Matthews, but my oldest is graduated from college, so it was a few years ago. So it's good to be back. So because the changes to the text amendment changes requested obviously related to the next zoning case you're going to hear from. So I'll try not to repeat myself at both of them, but I want to give you a little bit of context for why the text amendment changes. We're doing that, which is hard without looking at the actual plan that we're looking to do. As I said, I'm with Laurel Street. We're thrilled to be Mount Moriah Baptist Church's development partner on the master plan that they've, this is actually phase 2 of their master plan. Their original master plan was to build their new sanctuary many years ago. And we're phase 2. And actually we hope someday there's a phase 3, which may come up a little bit as we talk. But just a very quick, the next one, I'll go really fast to tell you we're a Charlotte-based firm. We specialize in mixed income communities for families and seniors. that are affordable to households of a variety of incomes. Mixed income and affordable housing is what we do. It's not just a small part of what we do. It is kind of it's what we do. It's our DNA. You can go to the next. We work throughout, we're based here in Charlotte, but we operate throughout the Southeast from developments from Richmond to Atlanta. We're an 11-year-old company, 23 of us working to do affordable housing development. We're well known for our partnership approach. We've worked with other developers, municipalities, churches, other faith-based institutions, and we're a certified minority-owned and women-owned business. You can go to the next. I'll go real quick. We've developed over our history about 5,000 units of every architectural style you can probably imagine, including both housing for seniors and housing for families. So I'll go to the next. And I'm here tonight representing Laurel Street. Also here is Kay Dodd, who works with Laurel Street, and greetings from Dion Nelson, who's our principal and CEO, founded the company 11 years ago. So I can go to the next. So just now we can get into Mount Moriah. So as I said, we're thrilled to be Mount Moriah's development partner. And so we want to tell you a little bit about what we're trying to accomplish to help them accomplish their vision. And so obviously some of the text amendments and the next case you'll hear, which is a change to conditions for the site, are really related to helping them accomplish their vision, but also recognizing the context in which we're doing that. So you can go to the next. We're proposing to build 92 affordable senior housing units. They're all affordable, but they are a mix of incomes serving different income levels, a combination of 1-bedroom units and 2-bedroom units with unit sizes ranging from 700 to 900 square feet. We are going for financing for tax credits from the North Carolina Housing Finance Agency. That is what allows us to build kind of high quality, indistinguishable from market rate development while also serving folks a variety of incomes. Just to give you a sense of what would be in the building, some of this relates to it being an independent living facility, but honestly, these are things we would do on every development like this. It also helps check all the boxes to be an independent living facility. But that includes everywhere from these are interior hallways, elevator access, on-site management, fitness room, multi-purpose room, a covered patio, which you'll see in one of the renderings, individual storage units, laundry facilities, all in the building. Within the units, you've got fully equipped kitchen. These are independent living units, fully equipped kitchens, bathrooms, luxury flooring, walk-in closets, ceiling fans, and also what I forgot to put on here is pull chains, call box. You know, you can pull a chain in the bathroom. It alerts kind of the folks around you that there's an emergency. Outdoor amenities, you'll see a little bit about this, and the location of these will be very important. Raised garden beds for the residents, sitting areas, but also potential for that private community space to blend into public community space and do a pocket park along the Heritage Trail. Go to the next. So for context, I thought it was important to show this is the currently approved site plan for the development, which was approved back in, I think, 2007. I'll probably get that wrong. The new church you can see in the kind of left-hand side of the development. And on the right hand, you'll see a building that was labeled assisted living. That building was right up on Crestdale Road. And one of our goals in doing this rezoning, the text amendment, is to make some changes we think makes it more consistent with Crestdale Drive.
Excuse me, Mr. Cochran.
Yes.
You want to make a comment?
You need to complete your comments to the text amendments.
Sure.
Text amendments are not site specific, but you've gone off on to discussing the project, which is the next.
Okay.
So you need to keep the text amendments on.
I'll tell you what, if it helps, I can just hold the rest of my comment. Knowing I'm coming back to do another presentation, I'm happy to kind of talk more about that. I apologize for that. Okay. Let me try one more site plan and then you tell me if I'm off and then I'll do it on the next one. Because I'm going to talk about the site plan. So it's probably better for me to wait till the next presentation. I'm happy to do that. Sure. So I'll finish by saying, I think what I've said, the purpose of the text amendments is to give some flexibility, we think, to build independent living facilities with senior housing. So I'll leave it at that and then probably address the other things in the next zoning case. But I appreciate your time. I'm going to hold myself to the next one.
Any comments or questions from the planning board or the Board of Commissioners? Commissioner Urban.
Okay, so let me get clarification. It's kind of an odd height request, 53 feet. So in the hypothetical world, because we're not talking about next, what floor to floor are you using and and what are you measuring to?
We would be doing 11-foot floor to floor for 4 stories with
44 feet.
44 feet, and recognizing that sometimes how heights are measured between average grade and where the top of the building is, we want to leave ourselves a little bit of flexibility. So we could modify that, but it's intended as
Okay, 'cause
44 feet.
All right, so we're saying 44, that's kind of measured to sort of an eve line. If it's a pitched roof, it's measured to the midpoint.
Right.
So I guess maybe between staff, maybe we could fine tune that a little bit, because I think there might be some discussions about the next petition in this height.
Absolutely.
But so 53 is a working concept at this stage in the game.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Maureen, do we have anybody from the public that's wishes to comment on this text amendment? All right, well, this application will be heard by the planning board on April 26th and come back to our board on May 9th. Okay. Would anybody in the audience like to comment on the text amendment? Just the text amendment. Okay. We'll move on to the next item then. Item D, zoning application 2022-755 Mount Moriah Senior Living to change the conditions in that certain CRC2 district, more particularly described as 381 Crestdale Road, 407 Crestdale Road, and 415 Crestdale Road, and also identified as tax parcels 215-021, 11, 15, and 50 to allow senior living units. Mr. Will.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As the mayor said, this is application 2022-755, change in conditions. Next slide, please. Thank you. The location is 381 Crestdale Road and 415 Crestdale Road. There's 3 parcel IDs. The existing zoning is CRC2, and that does not propose to change. The proposed site is vacant at this time. However, the overall parcel is developed with Mount Moriah Baptist Church and other accessory uses. What they're proposing is an independent. The applicant proposes changing the zoning conditions to develop 92-unit independently senior living residential facility with amenities. And here is the entire site. Where the star is where the proposed structure will be located, and we'll show the site plan in a little bit. But as you can see, it also includes the church, and as I mentioned before, accessory uses to the church. Looking west on Crestdale, you can see our beautiful Crestdale Heritage Trail goes in front of this site. And then also the site it's wooded, but it's not very wooded. I'll just put it that way. Next slide, please. Site information, all 3 parcels. So the 3 parcels. Oh, battery's dead. Oh no, it's nice. There we go. So these 2 parcels are also owned by the church and included in a portion of the development. I just did not outline them, but I wanted to point that out to the board. Again, the sanctuary is here, and the proposed residential structures to go there. It was rezoned from CRC to CRC2 in 2018, and the master plan that Mr. Cochran showed, that is also on my slideshow, was approved in 2009 as a special use permit. That was way back when we did special use permits. All 3 parcels total about 10 acres, a little under. Again, this is the approved master plan. I won't go into too much detail here, but again, the assisted living was proposed in this corner. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is the proposed site plan and conditions. They're proposing 92 units and will be 4 stories, about 53 feet in height. And following amenities will be provided. They are required to provide at least 8 amenities on a laundry list that we have in the UDO. They're proposing 9, including interior mail package rooms, conditioned corridors, emergency pull cords, an interior elevator, business center, fitness room, community room, on-site property maintenance, and controlled access. There'll be a total of 212 parking spaces on the combined site, with 40 spaces being shared between the church and the residential units. The 1 and 2 bedroom units will be for households with incomes ranging from 30 to 80% of the area median income. These are some conceptual elevations. This is the southwest and northeast elevation. So from the side, the next slide shows the southeast elevation, which is what will be facing Crestdale Drive, and the northwest elevation will be towards the rear. And the next slide, due to I did not request a CMS analysis because there's age restricted. These are age restricted units, not just targeted of 55 and older. So I did not request CMS analysis. Here's a summary of their transportation impact analysis. Basically, just the driveway to the site needs to have a 50-foot internal protected stem. So it needs to have stacking, but no other improvements were recommended at this time. We're still going through some revisions to the TIA, and I will have more information to the planning board and for the board at the final decision time. And so the land use plan has some adopted policies that do specifically revolve around senior marketed independent living facilities. Towns should provide an array of housing types, densities, and locations. Senior living communities and marketed, including assisted living communities and skilled quick care nursing homes, which is not what we were talking about tonight, but should be practically located. Neighborhoods which incorporate a variety of residential, commercial, and institutional and service uses geared towards seniors are ideal for such senior-oriented housing. It's generally consistent with the land use plan. And last but not least, there were not too many concerns from staff. However, the main concern would be the visual impact of a 4-story building. It would be in striking contrast to the existing neighborhood. Scale and community fit are a possible concern. Additional parking needs to be accommodated elsewhere in site, but I think that can be taken care of by shared parking with the church. And that concludes the staff report. Happy to take questions from the commissioners or the planning board.
Rob, how does the 212 parking spaces square with the 1 space per unit, and there's 92 units?
Well, that's a good question. I think that, okay. Let me back up. The 212 is for the whole site. So that includes what the church needs as well.
Okay.
So I apologize for not making that clear. But there would be 40 shared parking spaces with the church. So they would have 95 spaces for the residential use.
Okay. Commissioner Tafano?
Yes, how did you arrive at the 92 units, Mr. Cochran?
essentially it's in order to make a viable, affordable senior development, which has on-site management, on-site maintenance, a full-time management person, a full-time maintenance person. That's generally where we need to be in order to kind of have something be viable. One piece of commentary is in the affordable housing world, it generally takes 4 or 5 years to get from the time we think of a concept to get housing on the ground. And it's the same amount of work, whether you're building 92 or 50. So just in terms of production of affordable housing, we do try to get to kind of a minimum number, but it's also for maintenance and just management.
Thank you. One more question. In your community meeting, were there any negative comments at all?
I would say there were mostly questions related to how the development would operate in terms of how do people apply, how are they approved for units, but they weren't negative. They were literally like, how do I get on a waiting list? How do you screen tenants, that kind of thing. But
Okay, so all the neighbors, there were none that objected. Is that correct?
correct. There was questions about the back buffer, but that's a site plan. I didn't want to get, I can address that in kind of my next presentation.
All right,
There was
thank
a
you.
question or two about that. So
Are there any questions for Rob before we move on to Mr. Cochran again? All right, Mr. Cochran, I guess you're up again to now present the actual development.
Thanks. So we gave you 2 presentations, but they were the same presentation. So if you want to leave the same, whichever one you want, it's fine. So you can really skip to. I do want to. I'll stop here just because I want to go to the site plan, but I do want to give you a visual. I think 3D renderings usually do a little bit better than an elevation. Because I want to point that porch there on the corner is what faces Crestdale Road, and also what faces what would be the both private raised garden beds for the residents, but also kind of what we want to make a more public park / community gathering area. I've always worried about the word park because sometimes that has specific definitions, but a truly community gathering space adjacent to the Heritage Trail, but also the residents would have a shared large porch that would look out over that. So from a rendering standpoint, this is really a shot from Crestdale Road, though obviously not Crestdale Road, you'd be farther back. So we'll talk a little bit about how far back we are from Crestdale Road in a second, but we may come back to this, but just visually kind of keep this in your mind. But you can go to the next. We did all of that. So I don't think we have, again, 92 units, list of the amenities of those really, the amenities on the next slide do mainly line up with independent living, but also there's some additional ones like raised garden beds. Obviously is not an amenity required to be an independent, but that's just what we do. So you can go to the next. Rob already showed you the old plan. So this is probably where I'd like to spend a minute. So this is our revised plan. A couple of things that we're trying to do with the development that are important. One is pairing a senior housing with a church use and institutional use is a very common thing we do, but it's done across the country. They are very nice complementary uses. From the services of a church and the folks that want to live in senior housing, they are often paired together. So this is another example of, we think, good complementary uses. You'll notice it's not the east, but to the right, to northeast is an industrial building. That's an important context of what we were trying to do. What we really wanted to do, if you remember the old plan, the building was right up on Crestdale Road. And what we heard from our original meetings with Rob and Jay was Crestdale Road is a more low density road. It is some single family. Even the church owns 2 single family homes along Crestdale Road. So what we're trying to do is pull that building as far off Crestdale Road as we can. So we are about 170 feet off of the road and about 150 feet off of the Heritage Trail. So if you're walking down the Heritage Trail, you'd be 150 feet away from the building. And between the building and the Heritage Trail is the tree save in the lower corner, and then also what we want to have as a community gathering space adjacent to the Heritage Trail, kind of consistent. It just kind of blends in with the Heritage Trail. The porch is right there at that corner of the building. Those little rectangles, those are the raised garden beds. Essentially, residents can reserve those and grow vegetables. They grow flowers. They kind of use them as their own personal gardens. The circle, I think, is a gazebo, and then there's a picnic shelter. All that is a little bit a placeholder for planning something that kind of is both community space and space for the residents. The other thing we're trying to do is put the long end of the building up against that industrial use. So while we are very close to that property line, because it's an industrial use, we're staying well off the property line above. We're about 100 to 120 feet off of the back property line, which there is 2 single family houses back there. And the existing very dense tree cover that exists there today would remain. That was one of the questions we got at the community meeting, and they seemed happy with where we've put the building and what we've left between the building and where they are. So it's 120 feet to a property line, and then even farther to some of the actual single family houses. I won't promise they won't see the building, but it's going to be pretty hard. They're going to be looking through a very dense forest to try to see that building. Let me make sure I got all of the other, all right, the other key feature. This is part of the reason for the parking, because I do want to talk about parking for a minute. We've built a lot of these developments. Our typical user of this building, we typically, the use of parking is usually about 0.6 parking spaces per unit, less than 1 per unit. It's our experience over many, many of these. What we didn't want to do is over park this so that you end up with a sea of parking. We also know that the church's parking is not used to its capacity, it's existing parking. So what we've actually done is the parking that you see that is kind of shaded darker is the parking we build. So we want to build enough parking that we know we need for the building. With the other parking that the church is not using becomes overflow that we don't really think we need, but it's there in case it's needed. But what it allows us to do is 2 things. One, we keep that gathering space along Crestdale Road. And then as important is you'll see between our parking and Crestdale Road, I might need the clicker. Is this, oh, great. Which button? Okay, these are the 2 lots that Rob mentioned are owned by the church. We have parking here, but we're leaving this open. I mentioned a phase 3. The church has a master plan of phase 3 that includes some housing on land owned though up here, but we also want to integrate some housing here. And you'll see these are single family. This is the old church, the original church sanctuary. That's, not probably the height of a 2-story building. We would want to create some housing here. And I promise I did not put anyone up to this when we started talking about quads and things of that nature. That is what we've done. We have done rental quads that look like single family houses. We think a use like that or a townhome use, something that's a much lower in height along this kind of on these parcels here, along with this community gathering space kind of preserves what Crestdale Road kind of could be, even while allowing you to do some significant amount of affordable housing for seniors. So there's a lot of thought given into this. We know we're building a 4-story building and we're putting it into a combination industrial residential. It's kind of an odd neighborhood. You've got a lot of industrial, but you've also got some residential. So we're trying to respect that while also trying to build affordable housing. So that's a little bit of why the text amendment, but also why this conditional plan is important, because it restricts us to doing this. We can't suddenly move that building up and put a 53-foot building 50 feet away from Crestdale Road. We have to keep it back where it is. I'll go maybe one more slide because I think it's another rendering just to kind of finish it off, just to give you again some context. Again, that porch you're seeing there is 150 feet. If you're standing on the Heritage Trail and looking at that, you're about 150 feet away from that porch. So that's where that really great space can be between. Really quickly, I did put a timeline in there, the last slide, just for we are in the process of obviously rezoning, but also applying for tax credits. In our world, that means we would find out later this year if we were awarded that funding, which for us means if everything goes well, we'd begin construction on this the middle to half of maybe 18 months from now and finish sometime in 2025. As I said, these they build fairly quickly, but the process is long. So, I'm happy to answer any questions. So,
are there any questions for Mr. Cochran? Commissioner Urban.
I'm an equal opportunity questioner, so commendable on bringing the project to Matthews. I mean, there's been a lot of debate about the town doing things, but this is clearly evidence of private funding and private investment is bringing affordable housing, albeit it's senior, it's a start. So I do understand planning boards or planning staff's comment about the height. I don't know if you floated the old balloon trick, which was raise the balloon up there and everybody stood back and said, man, that's really high. This is an out of wave project, so it's not in downtown. So we've had other debates about 4-story structures. Another one was independent living, if I'm not mistaken, next to Lidl, and that whole discussion was 4 stories, and no one wanted 4 stories. Now it was approved. I think we did a stepping 3 stories at the edge and up to 4. So it'd be an interesting debate from that standpoint. But I don't necessarily have a problem with it because you're so far back. But it is daunting. I just hope that everybody understands. The building, by my calculation, is 350 feet long. So it's sitting in Panther Stadium, one end zone to the other, 4 stories tall. So, I don't know. I mean, looking at your elevations, they're interesting to say the least. How do you articulate that? How do you mask the building and all? I think these are all things you're gonna have to contend with. How to do with landscaping. Some of the things that senior is a little bit different than market rate. But I think seniors still like certain things. And I'm just wondering, you have that ground level porch you talk about, but there aren't any other porches on any other elevations or anything like that. So we'll keep that in mind. We'll talk about that in a minute. So it doesn't have that sort of real residential feel to it, a little bit more institutional. I think you would agree. And then you do sort of concentrate all your pedestrian friendly outdoor spaces in that one cluster. So there isn't a lot of relief around the building. And that may have been a site planning issue, whatever. So I'm just lifting these things up. Sure. I'm assuming that my copy isn't very good, but what I call the little rock hatch, I'm assuming is probably a fire access around the building. The little, looks like,
Yes.
yeah.
Correct.
Okay, so you have your fire, okay.
Which is grass, like
You
wouldn't know.
Permagrid or something like that?
Yeah, like you would not
Paver
even
grid,
know it.
yeah,
Right.
yeah, grass grows through it, okay.
Right.
So there's obviously an opportunity for a walking trail to go around the entire building, and do that. So and maybe that could be pointed out. So overall, I mean, those are the kind of things. It's sort of like, yes, it's a very large building. Could you have done 2 buildings? Maybe, I don't know. But I just want to raise those things up about the pedestrian friendliness, the scale of the project, et cetera. And maybe those things can be worked out. Obviously, if the neighbors are all in concert and don't have an issue with it, that's fine as well. But it'll be one of those rare instances where we're talking a 4-story building other than the one next to Lidl and or the hospital, actually. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem McCool.
First, I've been talking about affordable, attainable housing for a while, so I'm glad to see something coming forward by a private developer. I think it's very good and it fills a need. My concern is kind of in step with Commissioner Urban's. I was pretty outspoken about the 4-story building on Idlewild by Lidl. I don't know how to say it, but you don't want a building that's almost towering over or bullying the other buildings near it. So make sure we keep that in mind. I did like what he said about, there's not really like balconies or like, canopies or anything like that other than on the first floor. So maybe some way to integrate that. The parking is fine. I do have a question about, so you have the basketball court, which is there. Is that going to stay a basketball court? Are you going to change that into more recreational for the seniors, or what's that look like? I know it's a pretty well-used court. So
I will not speak for the church in that respect. I'm going to try to not stay in trouble. We don't have any plans to do anything with it. I would say that it's hard to see in this, but there is a creek that kind of runs the upper and on the other side of it, the church owns land, and there is an intent at some point to do another phase that may be far in the future. And I could see that being a part of that, could be part of that redevelopment, or it could be in the interim, but our plan is to leave it alone.
Because, I'm looking at it, you have the picnic shelter, you have the gardening plot, you have the gazebo. There's not a lot of room for outdoor recreation other than like walking. So, I pay homage to former town manager, maybe a pickleball court or something like that. It's for outdoor recreation would be something I would be interested in seeing. But otherwise, I think it's a good start.
Yep. And certainly you can always walk down the Heritage Trail all the way to downtown.
I'd just like to follow up with that. My parents lived for about a decade in Hilton Head Island, and they had these beautiful basketball courts near the ocean, and nobody ever used them. And I asked my father, why aren't people using these basketball courts? He said, because seniors don't play basketball. And that's mostly who live there. For me, I think this is really exciting. I'm not overly concerned about the height of the building as long as the neighbors aren't. And I can appreciate that there's an industrial neighbor that probably doesn't care if the building is a certain height. So if that's what it takes to do it, I mean, I would be supportive. I do want to give, even though Commissioner Whitley is recused, Larry, you can make a comment. You can't enter into the debate, but if you'd like to make a comment about this proposed development, you're welcome to do so, sir. We're not going to debate or anything, but you can make a comment.
I have a representative for me, my chairman of the Deacon Board, Deacon Fred Bagel.
Okay, if there aren't any other questions, I'll welcome anybody from in the audience that would like to make some comments or.
Mayor, I'd like to make a quick comment.
Sure, go ahead. I'm sorry.
You know, I was also outspoken about the 4-story building by Lidl. And one of my big concerns was when a major change in architecture comes into a community, that they really have outreach to the community and connection with the neighborhood. And the idea is not to come in and create something without that input. And I have seen a lot of community input, and this goes back to that Crestdale study many years ago, that this fits into a need. The community has been involved in the design process. And so I don't have as much heartburn over this as I did that other building.
Thank you. Good points. Again, would anybody in attendance now? Mr. Baylor?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Mr. Mayor Pro Tem and the rest of the board members here at the town of Matthews. You know, I'm so thrilled tonight to see all of our Mount Moriah members and friends just to come out to show support for this important venture that we want to undertake. I want to ask you to stand. It won't take but a minute. All right.
I'd like to applaud your patience. It's been here a long time.
Thank you, Mount Moriah. I appreciate this opportunity, as I stated before. My goal tonight is to solicit your approval for the construction of the affordable housing for seniors, as you've already seen and heard about. You know, I'm sure you're aware that throughout Mecklenburg County and surrounding areas, there's a serious lack of affordable housing for seniors. And also, you're aware that we are partnering with Laurel Street Residential to provide some affordable housing for seniors age 55 and above right here in the town of Matthews. Now, Laurel Street, as you can see, is a very reputable company who has completed these types of structures from Richmond, Virginia, all the way to Atlanta, Georgia. And they also in the cities of Salisbury, Greensboro, Durham, Charlotte, and I believe they've completed approximately 5,000 quality units. 5,000, that's a lot. And of course, he mentioned the 92 unit facility that we're looking at Mount Moriah. You know, the thing that really sets it out is it's going to be on the campus of Mount Moriah Missionary Baptist Church. And we're so proud of that. Now, we at Mount Moriah feel that this venture will not only benefit seniors, it's also going to benefit the town of Matthews. It's going to show others that Matthews cares for the well-being of seniors, especially during these difficult economic times. The complex would be very accessible to public transportation. Also, other amenities such as grocery stores, restaurants, movie theaters, gas station, and churches. Regarding public transportation, now you got to keep in mind that upon the completion of the Lynx Silver Line, this will also be accessible transportation for the residents of this complex. Mount Moriah, being a missionary church, has a credo of helping others in our community and elsewhere. Now, this project gives us an opportunity to fulfill that obligation to the fullest. And we're looking forward to your approval to make that happen. This venture is also the result of a long-awaited vision of our pastor and the family at Mount Moriah Missionary Baptist Church. In closing, I'm again asking each of you to consider the benefits of this project. We are excited about it, and we remain hopeful for an approval. Thank you for giving me and Mount Moriah an opportunity to come before you tonight.
Thank you, Fred.
Now, I don't know if you should take that basketball court down, because I sometimes I go over there and shoot free throws.
All right, all right. All right, that's my pastor there, Pastor Chuck Wilson. Would you like to make comments, sir? I better allow him to do that.
Just a couple of minutes. Thank you, Mayor, Town Commissioners, Town Manager, Town Attorney. Thank you for the opportunity that is mine tonight to just speak for just a few minutes. My name is Chuck Wilson, and I'm one of the pastors of the Matthews United Methodist Church. And at Matthews, we take great pride in not just being a church in the community, but a church for the community. And I just want to take just a moment to say thank you, Mayor, for allowing 175 of us to gather on the town green last Wednesday evening to remember and to pray for the suffering people of Ukraine. Splendid interfaith experience representing nearly a dozen faith communities right here in Matthews or nearby. But tonight I'm here to speak on behalf of an exciting project put together by the faithful missionary people of the Mount Moriah Missionary Baptist Church, located right in the heart of Crestdale, one of the oldest historically Black communities in North Carolina. Though we have not taken a vote on this matter, I know that I speak for the 3,000 people that call Matthews United Methodist their spiritual home. I know they would be in support of this dynamic, transformative, landscape altering project. This project is good for Matthews. It's good for Crestdale. It's good for the community that knows that affordable, accessible housing is at a premium in our area. I trust the people of the Mount Moriah Church deeply. They're thorough, they're comprehensive, and they are people of enormous integrity. They will see this project through to be a shining light in our community. In addition, we've all heard tonight about the partners in this project, Laurel Street Development. Laurel Street has some of the best and brightest minds that this region has known when it comes to constructing long-term, sustainable, accessible, affordable, and safe places to live. All you have to do is just to look at their track record. Laurel Street builds high-quality communities that endure through the years as desirable places to live. So it's my hope that in the weeks ahead, leaders in this community will vote yes at every level to allow this amazing community of faith called Mount Moriah to proceed with this project. Thank you again for this opportunity to speak on behalf of this remarkable house of worship right here in the heart of Matthews, Mount Moriah Missionary Baptist Church. Thank you.
Thank you, Chuck. Would anybody else like to make a comment? Well, I think you had some pretty good commentators there. All right, Maureen, do we have anybody in the Zoom audience, virtual audience, that would like to speak on this? Okay, this application will be heard by the planning board on April 26th and come back to our board on the 9th. So thank you very much. Thank you, Mount Moriah, for waiting patiently so long for this to come up. Move on to the next agenda item, but Larry, first I'd like to ask you to rejoin the meeting here.
Thanks, sir.
All right. So Commissioner Whitley has rejoined us. We'll go to E, zoning application 2022-756 Lemma Townhomes to change the zoning from R12 to RVS on that certain property designated at 718 Matthews Mint Hill Road and also designated as tax parcel 215-102-16. Miss Bennett.
I thought they were all going to stay to listen to me talk too. This is, as you say, 1718 Matthews Mint Hill Road, change in zoning. Can you advance it also? Is this better? Is this better? Okay. Okay, so the owner, last name is Lemma. I'm sorry, I would probably massacre the first name. The existing zoning is R12. The proposed zoning is RVS. The site right now is undeveloped, and the applicant is proposing 5 townhomes. So again, they're requesting the change of zoning from R12 to RVS to build 5 3-story townhomes. At least that's per the current plan. If you can advance. So you can see the site right there, and you can also see, which will be important in a moment, that's Butler High School right next to it. And then on the other side, there are apartments. Across the street are some, I believe it's apartments, but there are some townhomes there in front, fronting Matthews Mint Hill. These are the street views. You can see the townhomes across the street. And you can see it is wooded right now, and it kind of leads right to Butler High School. So 1.06 acre site. It's currently undeveloped. I can also tell you from walking out there that it's just a trash receptacle right now. I think a lot of students walk along there, but it's undeveloped, bordered by Butler High School and an apartment complex. And there have not been any previous zoning actions on the property. So this is their site plan right now. They had actually started out with 6 townhomes that were at the very back of the property. And they reduced it to 5 and moved them up. That was per our suggestion. These are their elevations right now. I know that the notes there are very tiny. They don't have anything. It's all standard notes right now. I'm guessing that there may be more notes that come out of this tonight. Go ahead. So the land use plan, you heard this early this evening, notes that RVS zoning is appropriate for higher density, single family housing options. And it's ideal for development opportunities for unusual parcel shapes and parcels in close proximity to heavily used roadways. And it is it's a little kind of triangle parcel. So it would be consistent with the land use plan. And the land use plan says we should provide a variety of housing styles, densities, and locations, encourage design and construction of alternative style housing and infill development, and promote higher density multifamily and transit supportive housing developments along thoroughfares. So from the planning department, we note that it's pretty modern looking what you saw there. And this isn't right in the downtown area, so it doesn't have to be all traditional, but they could possibly go with a more traditional look than what they have right there. They need to show the lot sizes. These are just some general notes. Public Works requested a 10-foot sidewalk installed along Matthews Mint Hill because it does abut Butler High School. The site plan right now shows pavement right up to the property line in the rear, and for the ordinance, they need to have existing or new trees and shrubs along the rear and side boundaries. They need to note the amount of pervious surface so they can work with Mecklenburg County, and the plan goes between 2 and 3-story townhomes. Just want to be consistent about that. What I wanted to mention is that I did have a conversation earlier today with a representative of the Butler High School PTO. They're concerned, she said that they're not opposed to townhomes. They're concerned about any driveway access along that stretch right there, just because of the way that the cars queue. to pick up and drop off students. I talked to Public Works about this today, and they noted that a parcel is, they are allowed access to a road. We can't prohibit having any access to a parcel. So, and again, they did not they weren't concerned specifically about townhomes, just about any kind of driveway cut there. So the recommendation on that was that I think everyone's aware that there are a lot of queuing problems at Butler High School just in general. So the recommendation there was that they contact the police department, and the police department could get in touch with Public Works, and they could go out there and do a queuing study, and they could work on it that way. This might not be the best way to work on all of the traffic problems that they have at Butler. And I think that was it. Happy to answer questions if I can, and we do have a representative of the applicant here.
Mayor Pro Tem McCool.
Yeah, when I first saw this, my first concern was the traffic. It gets, when students are getting released, it gets real wonky there. I used to live at the apartments across the street, and that traffic is wonky if you're going there between 2 and 3 o'clock. So that's got to be something that's mitigated. Hopefully police and Public Works can figure that out, because I would be concerned if I was someone who lived there. I don't know how they would get in and out of their homes during that hour period. That's a huge concern.
Commissioner Urban.
Nadine, maybe the petitioner is the better one to answer this, but are these fee simple townhomes?
They would be the ones to answer that. I believe.
Okay, then I'll reserve that question.
I knew from the start of the question that that was going to be something for them.
Well, the question is it fee simple townhomes, or are these apartments that look like townhomes?
I believe that they're townhomes, but they will answer.
Okay,
that.
thank you.
Townhomes?
The standard townhomes.
Any other questions? Would the applicant like to make a presentation?
Did you submit a presentation? Yeah, I think you did, but I don't think you got it. Okay. Hello, I'm George Smith. Greetings to Mr. Mayor, Mayor Pro Tem, and this other August body. I'm George Smith. I'm a licensed realtor here in North Carolina, and I'm just helping out the Limas to try and get this project done because I helped them buy it. Can we see the rendering? Well, basically, we're going to build 5 two-story townhomes on the site, approximately 1,500 square feet each with a 1-car garage. Each unit will also have a dedicated parking space. And if you add up the garage and the driveway leading into it and the extra parking space, that leaves 3 parking spaces per unit. We're going to make sure that the site has at least 25% permeable green area. And we're going to save as many of the trees as possible, right? Oops. Well, I got to hold it. And we're going to keep this area right here green. We're planning to either put a park there for the residents to use, or just take it and just have a green area for the people who live in the townhomes to use. Also, right as far as traffic, right here, there's a turn lane. This turn lane, the road doesn't go around here like this, but what it does is it makes a cutoff here, just like that. It's a line here, it curves around, and it to the entrance of Butler. So, and this is about where the turn lane starts. That's that turn lane to get into Butler. So anybody living here, in all probability, going to be working, and during that time where there's heavy traffic, they probably won't even be there. But it's going to be really easy for them to get in. It might not be so easy to get out, but people will be able to get in, get out. We don't think there will be any significant problem with additional traffic because there's only going to be 5 units, 5 families, so we don't think it's going to impact traffic. And we're not done with the elevations yet because we're going to wait. And once we get approval, we'll go forward and try to have it all look like the neighborhood. Not exactly, but so it fits in. We're not going to do anything crazy. More than likely, it'll be like the units of the picture across the street. Okay, hopefully we'll have a brick face on it, and we're going to use really good high-end materials. No masonite, no plastic. We're going to use that Wonderboard and those concrete shingles and things like that they use now. And the interiors are also going to be luxurious. We're also going to have a fence along this back here for privacy. And all along here, and probably somewhere along here, we're going to have some type of fencing to keep the general public out of that townhome space. And basically, that's all I have.
Thank you, sir. Are there any questions? Commissioner Urban?
Welcome, George. Thank you for
sir.
coming. My first statement is I'm going to have to get over, it kind of falls to Ken's comment about being next to Butler. I'm going to have to sort of get over in my mind this site being developed at all. First thing, I think Butler needs the elbow room in a lot of respects, the view corridors, the sight lines, the whole 9 yards, and then we're introducing another visual distraction. So let's say I get beyond that point, but that's a significant area there to be developed, and we already have a lot of visual clutter going on, and we also hopefully someday we'll have a flyover that's going to land short of that intersection. Is that correct? It's going to introduce a whole nother. So let's say we get beyond that point. So one of the things, and you mentioned a lot of developers come to us from the standpoint is, well, we're going to work out the details later aspect of it. The question I would have is, well, it sounds like no matter what happens, we would want to reserve the right for elevation approvals down the road. So we wouldn't just take it for granted that, yeah, that's fine, it's going to look like $100. But at this stage in the game, if I was looking at it like every other petitioner, I would be asking for, better developed elevations. I'm not bothered by the modernist aesthetic, but I want a good modern building. These pitches, the roof's a little flat. It's kind of a initial level diagrammatic 3D program. So I mean, it could be refined a lot more. But I see potential, but I'd want to see more elaboration. And it goes to the heart of also in your notes, and you can get with Rob and Jay and his great staff. Your architectural standards are like, well, it can be this high and that's it. Look at other petitioners and their architectural standards. We will have X type of exterior products. We will be using soffits and fascias of this type of product. We will limit a certain percentage of X to be used. So we have something to sort of pin you down, for lack of a better word, in terms of the architectural consignments we have. We're using hardy board or some Timish products, or we're using masonry, or we're using brick, those kind of things, because we really have a concern about the aesthetic issues of what it is you're talking about. So I want to see more architectural guidelines, at least from that level. And then if you are proposing to reserve the right for elevation approval down the road, maybe that's something we get into. But that's primarily on the aesthetic. On the architectural side, I think the site plan needs to be a little bit more developed. I'd like to sort of see, it looks like an awful lot of concrete. And I'd like to sort of see more of a landscaping plan about showing the potential areas of screening. You've got pitched roofs, so that tells me that the condensing units are sitting on the ground. Well, how are you going to screen the condensing units? So all these details need to be worked out. And I'm wondering, and this question's to you, Jay, or Rob, and your staff, or actually Nadine, is this something that maybe the public hearing remains open, or is it far enough along that staff can work with him and get to the planning board and make a reasonable discussion?
Definitely think there's some tweaks that are needed in the site plans from a constructability perspective.
Mhm.
Sorry, just referencing the site plan here, when you look at the concrete all the way to the property line, or the drive aisle to the property line without the landscaping, you know, the setbacks, that far left unit, that clipped corner is unusual. That's not, you probably wouldn't build a building that's just, it's going to have a right angle right there. So there are definitely some tweaks to the plan that need to occur before it's ready for approval. It's up to them whether they can make those. Okay, well, it sounds like they've got something. So that's the board's prerogative if you want to keep this open and see it again before it goes to planning board.
I mean, it goes what, April 26th is planning board?
April 26th and back to us on the 9th. Yep.
So it's more of a matter of whether or not they can pull together information for the planning board and then come back to us. And I would hold to Mr. Foster and his group to sort of vet it beyond that point. But I think this is, in my mind, this is schematic. And so it needs a lot more flushing out. And if it can be flushed out, because the planning board can only respond to what they see, what they see is what they get. And if there's not any additional development, we're not going to be able to really thoroughly vet this project.
So it's up to you, sir, if you would like us to continue this for another month, or do you think you can be ready with the planning board?
We can be ready for the planning board on by the 26th. Yes.
Okay.
Okay. And I do have another elevation, but we just didn't get it to you in time to get it up there. I could leave this.
All this information needs to be into us earlier than later. It definitely not at 9 o'clock on the Monday night. I mean, we have submittal processes that if you have something, you need to get it to us so we have a chance to review it. I did all my reviewing Friday and Saturday. So, you know, we need to sort of stick to that. And unfortunately, if you present that tonight, then the next petitioner is going to go, oh, well, I'll take it at 10 o'clock at night, right on the end of the presentation. So my suggestion would be is prepare for the planning board, everything you have, and then maybe Jay and company can send us additional information as we move forward. Make sense?
Yes. I apologize. I'm a rookie at this, and it's a great learning experience. Yes, sir.
I was just wondering what the logic was. What was your original thinking about putting all of the units together like that?
It had mostly to do with space. Mostly to do with space, and that is not the actual best rendering. Like you said, with that corner cut off. So we're gonna work it and tweak it until it looks good and it works for the site. We just don't want to go. We're not going to just throw something up when we get approval.
Okay, thank you.
We're looking at 2 years down the road before we finish it.
Thank you.
All right. If Maureen, is there anyone in our vast Zoom audience that would care to make a comment?
They have public.
Anybody in the public?
Yeah, we have public.
Mr. Martin.
Gentlemen, I found this one, and ladies, I found this one, commissioners. I found your petition here, of course, on the internet the other day while looking at another one. And I knew that this parcel of land existed. And as a builder, I evaluated it pretty quickly and decided that it was really not something that I wanted to build on. I think that you, as the commissioners, would be doing a disfavor to the motoring public, to the 5 families that would live on that site, and to the children at Butler High School. If you leave the new red light at the new apartment complex and start towards Butler, there is about an 8 to 10 foot elevation drop from the top of the sidewalk to grade on the site. And what that and that site is, it slopes to the rear. There's no excess dirt there that could be used to raise that site, so it'll all have to be hauled in. There used to be a pond down in behind the site, but that pond would not interfere with the site itself. What that elevation drop does is you're on the outside of an elevated curve as you come from the light and head toward Butler. That's the high point of the roadway. It slopes to your new, the road slopes to your new apartment complex across the street. What that means is that a vehicle pulling off the street is immediately going to be doing this. And if he's trying to re-enter the street, he's going to be doing this. So he's got cars coming from Matthews that he barely can see, and he certainly can't see them until he gets to the top of the slope. And then you also have, if he's looking and trying to make sure that there's traffic not coming from Matthews, then he's got oncoming traffic coming from Butler and from Ottawa Road, et cetera. I don't know how many square feet of impervious surface there is there, but I don't see a detention pond. There may not be, but 18,000 feet or something of impervious there instead of the 20. That's the threshold, but there's a lot of wide paving, which is going to be necessary. So I would just simply encourage you and someone to very carefully look at the elevations due to all the traffic movement that has to happen.
Would the applicant care to respond to this comment? Or?
No. Well, I hear him, and he's probably got a point there with that, but we're gonna, the site is owned. We have to do something with it. It's an eyesore. Like somebody said, it's full of bottles and junk, and there are lots neglected. There are trees that need to come down. We're going to keep as many of them as we can. There's some maybe we can trim up, but if we can't get this site approved for development, then it's just going to be an eyesore. It's going to remain an eyesore.
Mayor Pro Tem McCool.
Is there a reason that Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools didn't buy this little corner when they were developing Butler? Is there a reason it's just kind of by itself? It doesn't really make sense. It's kind of smushed in between. Is there, I don't know if that's, who would know. It just seems like a very weird piece of property to be by itself, and why it's not CMS property.
Just didn't value it.
Yeah, I guess it's just interesting.
All right, if there's no further comment, this application will be heard by the planning board on April 26th. Come back to the Board of Commissioners on May 9th. Thank you.
Thank you.
I know everybody would like to take a break, but I really would like to get through this last one here if we can. I think it looks to be pretty short. So Nadine, can you come up for motion 2022-1-I-1 text amendment to amend existing UDO text to allow a limited amount of outdoor storage in the I-1 zoning district?
Hello again.
You have 6 minutes.
I thought I was going to be the one who was cut off. I can do it in 6 minutes. So this is another case where we've had a number of violations, specifically on I-1 zoning, of people who have outdoor storage who aren't supposed to have outdoor storage. And in discussions of how to address these violations, I mean, we try and come up with a good solution for everyone. One possible solution is that we allow a limited amount of outdoor storage in I-1 zoning. And we wouldn't do this just to clear up violations. We would do this because we think it makes sense for the town. This is something that in other communities, they do allow outdoor storage and the same type of zoning, the light industrial zoning. Charlotte allows 25% of the building footprint, which is where I took this from. I don't think they have any limit actually on any upper limit on it. We thought we would want to cap it at 10,000 square feet. So again, this would just allow a limited amount of outdoor storage in the I-1 zoning district. 25% of the building square footage, up to 10,000 square feet, have to be located in the rear and the side, and it would have to be within the setbacks and also screened. And they would have to come to us with a plan for it to show us what the screening would be, where the storage would be, give us the building square footage, and let us know how much they're going to use for outdoor storage. I would imagine it's also going to take some inspection afterwards, because there would probably be some creep where they have their outdoor storage. So if you go to the next page. For myself, I just wanted to see what 25% of the building square footage would look like. So I did the map. And this is really just a rough estimate in GIS. And it's not located where it would necessarily be located. Can you do that so it's just one page? There you go. So that's the area where we have a lot of violations, and that's what it would look like, 25% of each of those buildings on the ground. And there are a couple of properties there. Of course, now I won't be able to. I believe that one right there and here, they came up against the limit of 10,000 square feet of storage. So there would be those out there would be limited to the 10,000 square feet. We have one property on here that actually is coming in. They want to come in for rezoning. They were going to look at I-2 with only I-1 uses and but the outdoor storage that went along with I-2, which is a little bit confusing. And then if they were allowed that, I would imagine others would come in for the same thing. We thought this would be just a better kind of blanket solution and something that worked for the town as well, because it makes the businesses more viable. And if you have questions.
Questions? Commissioner Hoover.
Just real quick, it says screen from the public right of way, but is the storage space going to be covered kind of thing as well, or just like wide open, just with,
It would
screened?
not, it wouldn't be covered. I believe it's just screened on the
Like
outside.
if you're putting wood out there, the wood's just going to be stacked outside, but it will be screened.
Yes.
Commissioner Urban.
So to follow up that, someone is parking RVs, very tall RVs. Does the screening have to be as tall as the RVs?
I would imagine yes.
Okay,
And we could
so we-
specify that.
I mean, it's kind of odd that we're sort of, because we have violators, we're going to amend the law to appease the violators. However, I see this sort of bent to sort of accommodate, but at the same time, I think on the screening side, we want to be, what are those unintended consequences? Because, like, I'm not worried about Bo and his lumber yard, but I mean, you could stack up lumber really, really high.
True.
And next, you'd have how do you screen it?
That's a really good
So
point.
maybe this limitation of height, that would be the prerogative.
That's
as opposed to-
that's a very good point, and I'll make a note of that. And again, it's not just that we wanted to clear up some violations. I mean, we have a new code enforcement officer, and we could send them right out there and do these things, give them something to do. But we thought this actually made sense.
Yeah, I'd like to say I do think it makes sense as someone who's worked on in and on industrial sites for most of my career. Sometimes there's a need to put stuff outside. You don't have enough room inside, and it makes the properties more usable for those people that use them. And we certainly want people to use the properties and to hire our citizens, and it just makes sense if it's done in a tasteful way and not too much. So,
But I will definitely make a note of the height too.
all right. Any other questions or comments on this one? Anybody from the Zoom audience? Why did I know you were going to say that? This application will be heard by the planning board on what day? Everybody? April 26th, and come back to us on May 9th. Thank you. I would entertain a motion to reconvene the regular meeting. I'm sorry, George. Mr. Martin.
Roger Martin, 2442 Bain Farm Road, Mint Hill, 28227. Mr. Camp told me about this petition a couple of weeks ago. I had seen it on the computer as well. And I just heard the comment that you were trying to help folks and arrive at at a new solution for perhaps an old problem. But then I immediately saw the fact that somewhere in the 2006 to 2008 time period, and Jay, I don't remember when, but the town worked on the downtown overlay district and ordinance. And y'all spent a lot of time rewrite, redo, et cetera. But you finally came up with something to incentivize some landowners or even builders to come in and really do something nice downtown. And part of that area where the doing nice was going to be in the West Charles territory. I think you probably got an occurrence or two on East Charles where businesses have allowed their footprint to expand. There was a gentleman who came along sometime about 2010 or 12 and spotted the lot on West Charles that is coming shortly to propose that their property be rezoned to allow this. Well, I'm one of those builders that that thought that the downtown overlay district was a nice thing and could be really sharp if done correctly. And so I did the first one in 2008, and then the second piece of property came along, and that was at 534 West John. And those are through lots. They run all the way through from West John to West Charles. And then in about 2014, 15, another piece of property came available. And that one was at 547 West Charles at the corner of Lois and West Charles. And so both of those properties have what I consider to be pretty sharp buildings on them now. They're professional uses. And then about 3 years ago, the lease term came due on the 534 West John, and the tenant needed more parking than I had provided and that the town had required on the original building in 2008. So the gentleman who bought the West Charles lot across from us had subdivided his into 3 parcels. And he sold the first 2 parcels. And then I came along needing a parking lot to satisfy my tenant. So I worked with Mary Jo Gollinitz and Jay and Kathy, I think, was still here then. And we scratched our heads and got an engineer to assist us with trying to figure out how in the world put a flat parking lot on a mountainside. And she did a pretty darn good job. The bulldozer operator did the rest of it. And I now have a parking lot that is fully landscaped. And I consider it my park. There's a lot of times I'll just come, if I'm anywhere close to Matthews, and just pull down there and sit and park. My whole purpose for all of this conversation is we've been lucky, we have been lucky enough on West Charles that recently, within the past year, at 600 West Charles, which was the blight of the neighborhood at that point, the second owner or the long-term owner sold it, and a new owner bought it. And after keeping it about, I don't remember now, 2, 3, 4 years, he decided to upgrade. So instead of a gravel parking lot, he put in a fresh new asphalt lot. The building next to him, which would be further towards Matthews Township Parkway, at about the same time, I think that building changed hands, and the new owner or the landlord, whoever still owns that building, spent a wad of money upgrading that building, putting a new roof on it, cleaning it up. And so at this point, we have two older buildings that have been upgraded, plus the two buildings that I've built, plus Mr. Black, who owns the pest control business, I understand is getting ready to submit for downtown overlay so that he can build a new office building for his pest control company. So there's an example of what you folks worked so hard to do back in the 06, 08 time period, was to incentivize some new, fresh development there. So then, since those two lots were sold, there has been some dissatisfaction among property owners because one fellow wants to keep his looking nice and avoid the tractor trailer trucks and et cetera. And then the rear building was sold again. However, the current tenant is a marble fabricator and installation company. So the purpose for the new petition that may be coming from them is so that that marble fabricator can work. Well, the marble fabricator currently has probably an area that is 12 by 20 that he's stacking marble in. And then in addition to that, he's got 1 or 2 density dumpsters that are where his scraps go. So needless to say, when I saw that proposal for the ordinance, I'm thinking, you know, the downtown overlay ordinance and this industrial ordinance aren't meshing. David Blackley, at some point in the future, either in his generation or it may be his kids' generation, will have property there to sell. There's no use in making it harder for him and other folks up through there to overcome any further distasteful look. In addition, I think one of the places that that the code enforcement gentleman has had difficulty with was up on the corner. And I think there is a brand new owner up there, or at least one that's maybe a year old. And they have just recently redone that building, painted, constructed a brand new dumpster enclosure. Looks very nice. It's black material. It looks so much better than what it did around there. The gentleman at 600 West Charles did do his paving, and he eliminated at the same time that he did that cleanup, he eliminated the tenants that had been using the parking lot and parking spaces to park old wore out tractors and equipment, anything that they might throw off the truck. One of the tenants also started throwing tree limbs, shrubbery cuttings, etc., which is what I had on the backside of where my lot is for the parking lot. They had a subcontractor who used it for dumping trash and plastic plant containers. So what I'm trying to get across there is it is really hard to monitor, control a person, owner or tenant, who doesn't care about the town, and he's just simply looking for a place to operate from. So I would ask you folks to seriously consider that ordinance, and hopefully it will die.
Thank you, Roger. And I certainly know your name. Somebody sent me a George Martin guitar earlier today that I had on my mind. I will now certainly entertain a motion to reconvene our regular meeting.
So move.
First. A motion for Mayor Pro Tem McCool, a second from Commissioner Whitley. All in favor? Renee?
Yes, Renee Garner.
Thank you, Commissioner Garner. So we now stand reconvened in our regular meeting, and I'd like to take a 5-minute or so break. I don't Let's reconvene so we can get this. Yeah, no, that wasn't the deal. That wasn't the deal. Don't make me come over there. All right, thank you. We're going to move on so we can finish this before becomes morning. Agenda item number 10, planning and development business. Receive the planning board report. Mr. Foster, go ahead, sir.
Hopefully you noticed that I didn't waste that time from my seat up here. I was ready to go.
I noticed that. Thank you. Appreciate that.
I still got to take the trash out tonight. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Board of Commissioners, and Planning Board members who are attending virtually. I have the Planning Board report from a meeting of March 22nd, 2022. Tonight, we have two items for Town Board action. Item number 1 is zoning application 2021-746 Campus Ridge Road to change the zoning from R20 to I2 conditional zoning on that certain property designated as 3250, 3240, 3012 Campus Ridge Road, and further being designated as tax parcels 215-061-09, 215-061-10, and 215-061-01. Members of the Planning Board reviewed the updated site uses and conditions for the zoning request. There were concerns from some board members regarding rezoning the property or recommending rezoning the property before an intended buyer has been surfaced for the property. The applicant further limited the allowed uses to only include warehouse and distribution, the light manufacturing and assembly, outdoor storage as allowed in the I2 zoning districts. The applicant also agreed to the condition that prior to development, the site plan, building elevations, and screen buffers would be submitted and approved by the Board of Commissioners. Planning Board recommended approval in a vote of 6-1. Members found the request to be consistent with the Matthews land use plan because it promotes growth of light industrial uses along the CSX railroad line, and the request was found to be reasonable as it would allow the development of otherwise unusable land. Item number 2, Public Improvement Variance 2021-742, Flagship Healthcare, to eliminate the requirement to construct and install a planting strip and sidewalk along the site's frontages on Team Road and Matthews Mint Hill Road. For the property located at 720 Lyle Cruz Road, Lyle Cruz Circle, and a portion of 641 Sam Newell Road, further being designated as tax parcel 193-245-24 and a portion of 193-245-08. The Planning Board reviewed the public improvement variance request. The applicant has been working with planning staff throughout the process to alter the placement of the 10-foot multi-use path between the tree save area and the building elevation along Matthews Mint Hill Parkway. However, in a vote of 5-2, members of the Planning Board recommended denial of the request simply because the request was to eliminate the planting strip and the sidewalk. It's our expectation that planning staff will continue to work with the applicant on a reasonable solution for placing the multi-use path between the building and the buildings that are already behind. One item for information only, administrative amendment for appliances for less. This is a request to allow placement of a sign in a conditional zoning district located at 9609 East Independence Boulevard, Suite G, further being designated as tax parcel 193-303-09. Planning Board members reviewed the updated request for a sign in the conditionally zoned Windsor Square Shopping Center. Signage would be conforming to what was allowed in neighborhood zoning districts. Planning Board unanimously approved the signage request, finding the application consistent with the Matthews land use plan because it promoted non-residential destination-bound land uses along the US 74 corridor. The request was found to be reasonable because the proposed zoning change did not significantly impact of the original rezoning.
All right, thank you.
Any questions?
How are you doing on staffing, on the planning board? Do you have all seats filled, or?
We have all seats filled with one alternate at this time.
Any questions for Mike?
Y'all are planning on coming back in public.
Yes, our April 26th meeting will be 100% in person. Finally. It's going to be nice to get back on the dais.
Thank you, Mike. Let's move on to planning and zoning related actions. And for the next 3 items, I believe Commissioner Urban would like to recuse himself. Is that correct, sir? Thank you, sir. You may turn your camera off now. Oh, wait a minute. So we'll move to item B1, public improvement variance, flagship healthcare. Mr. Will, once again.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a public improvement variance, as Mr. Foster indicated, for the applicant is requesting exemption from a section of the UDO that to install planting strip and sidewalk along the site's frontages along Team Road, Matthews Township Parkway. Staff does not recommend the actually, Jake, if you could just flip to the next one. Yeah, I wanted to show their proposed site plan. So this is what is being proposed. And staff does not support this, and we would like to continue to work with the applicant to come up with a more pedestrian friendly and intuitive solution. So at this time, we're still working with the applicant. It's a work in progress. So I think continuation of this would be appropriate at this time if the board so chooses, or if you wanted to have some discussion about it, we're open to that as well.
So is the concern of staff that the proposed alignment is too far interior to the site to be really pedestrian
Yes,
friendly?
yes, sir. That's the gist of it.
Any questions, comments, or motions?
I do have a question. So where do you expect it to connect on the other side of Lyle Circle? Lyle Cruz Circle.
On Lyle Cruz Circle? Well, that's one thing we're still working on, trying to come up with a solution. Maybe something that would cut through to Team Road and continue on. Lyle Cruz Circle is actually a private street, so we don't require we don't require sidewalk all along there. So,
but what about on the other side of Lyle's Cruz Circle?
Oh, up there?
Yeah. What's up there currently in terms of sidewalk? Anything?
I don't think there's anything up there right now.
That's what I was asking.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No,
I didn't understand the question.
I'm saying that with a smile on my face because all this is about a sidewalk that's not going to connect with another.
It
sidewalk.
will eventually. We build sidewalks piecemeal, and connectivity is a very important part of the town's mission. And so when we have the opportunity for developers to pay for sidewalks and multi-use paths, we really look for those.
Okay, thank you.
You have something, Becky?
I was just going to add that this section is one of the identified sidewalk projects. Yes, it is one of the projects because it is such a long stretch. It is actually one of the most expensive missing pieces of sidewalk in town. So if the variance was denied, this would be a portion that the town would not be looking to have to pay for in the future.
Mr. Carmichael, do you have any comments on this one?
John Carmichael here on behalf of the applicant. I'll be really brief. We would appreciate a little more time to continue to work with the planning staff. The topography is pretty dramatic from along 51 and Team Road. And we just would like a little more time if that's possible.
Thank you. Thank you. Commissioner Hoover?
Just real quick, has Mr. Berger, am I pronouncing that right, for the private road been addressed? Has there been anything with that?
There is a, I wasn't really prepared to address this, I'm sorry, but there is an agreement that where this property owner would have to share in the maintenance of that private road.
Yeah, I just remember him speaking. I didn't.
That's
know
right.
you
Yeah,
got
and
together or-
Mr. Bassage may be online. Supposed to be.
Well, I mean, that's fine. I was just wondering.
Oh,
We
no,
can-
no,
we
thank
can
you.
check
Okay,
back
yes.
into
Well,
it.
we can follow up with you.
That's fine. Thank you.
I'm sorry, where is the private road?
Lyle's Cruise Circle is a
Oh,
private road.
okay,
Yeah.
gotcha.
And then Man Drive is also a private road.
I got you. Commissioner Whitley.
Mr. Carmichael, will a month continuation? be
I
sufficient?
think so. I think that would work.
With that being said, I'd like to make a motion that we continue this public improvement variance until May the 9th.
Second.
Thank you. A motion from Commissioner Whitley, a second by Mayor Pro Tem McCool. All in favor? All opposed? Renee?
Yes, Renee Garner.
Thank you. I've been here so long, I almost forgot who you were. Okay, thank you. Well, that passes unanimously. We'll move on to the next item, zoning application 2021-742 to change the zoning from I-1 to I-1CD to B3CD and being properly designated 720 Lyle Cruz Circle and 641 Samuel Road, and further being designated as tax parcel 193-24524 and a portion of 193-24508. Mr. Will.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, this is a request for continuation by the applicant. We're still working on the this has to do with the public improvement variance. This is associated with the public improvement variance. So we'd like to continue this for another month as well.
Mayor Pro Tem McCool.
Make a motion to continue this proposal until the May 9th meeting.
I'll second it.
A motion by Mayor Pro Tem McCool, a second from Commissioner Whitley. All in favor? Commissioner Garner?
Yes, Renee Garner.
Thank you. That passes unanimously. We'll move on to the item 10B3, zoning application 2021-743 to change the zoning from R20, B1, I1, and I1CD to B1, CD and BHCD on those certain properties also currently designated as 633 Samuel Road, 641 Samuel Road, and 720 Lyle Cruz Circle, which by the way is a private road, and further being designated as tax parcels 193-24511, 193-24508, and a portion of 193-24524. Mr. Will.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, the applicant has requested continuation. This, if you recall, has the two buildings on the corner there of Sam Newell. And they're still working on some of their site plan details. So we would request, or the applicant has requested continuation for another month as well.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we continue this as well to May 9th as well.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Whitley, a second by Mayor Pro Tem McCool. All in favor? Commissioner Garner?
Yes, Renee Garner.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Thank you. Like to ask Mr. Urban to rejoin the meeting. Sir, you amenable to that? All right, thank you, sir. Getting a little punch drunk. Zoning application 2022-746 Campus Ridge Road to change the zoning from R20 to I2CD on that certain property designated as 3250, 3240, 3012 Campus Ridge Road, and further being designated as tax parcels 215-06109, 215-06110, and 215-06101. Ms. Bennett.
We've got kind of a trend going here with the applicant has requested to postpone or to continue this to the May meeting. As was mentioned, we have been working with them. They really cut back on the uses. But because you will be seeing it again, if you have site plan approval, we want to make sure you have something to go on. So they're going to give us some precedent imagery and some architectural guidelines to go on. So we're continuing to work with them on that. We actually do have someone here To answer questions if you have them, but again, the request is to continue it.
Would you like to say anything, Ms. Todd?
She's been sitting here for a while. She should get this.
Suzanne Todd, here on behalf of the applicant, 1065 East Moorhead Street, Charlotte, North Carolina. My contacts are literally stuck to my head. I can imagine how you folks feel tonight. But we are simply asking for another month until May 9th for a decision. There were questions, this property is a little different and unique, and we wanted to be able to address any other additional questions, concerns, but we've been working with staff, really paring down the uses, and hope that we can get this presented to you in a form that you'll feel very comfortable approving. Thank you.
Ms. Todd, are there any questions or motions?
Let's go ahead and defer this motion to May 9th. Continue it. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you, Charlie.
Second. Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Urban, a second by Commissioner Hoover. All in favor? Commissioner Garner,
Yes, Renee Garner.
any opposed? That passes unanimously. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to the final one for tonight, elevation approval for Chick-fil-A at 9905 Matthews Park Drive. Ms. Bennett.
So as I'm sure you do remember, you approved the site plan for Chick-fil-A, but we're not as happy as you could have been with the elevations. So they did work on them and they came back with something that we think is better. These are the new elevations. And if you scroll down one more, you can see them side by side. This is what they presented to us last time. And these are the changes. And we think it's a much better look for Matthews.
You're welcome.
All right. Are there any questions, comments, or motions? Commissioner Urban.
Since I was the instigator, I'd like to go ahead and make a motion that we approve the elevations as presented in the memo dated April 11th, 2022 from Nadine Bennett, our senior planner. And it's the good looking one that we're approving.
We have a second. Okay, we have a motion from Commissioner Urban, second from Commissioner Whitley is the first one I heard. All in favor? Ms. Garner,
Yes, Renee Garner.
sorry, Commissioner Garner.
Oh, wait, hold on one second. We had to make a clarification. Sorry. I noticed this afternoon that the brick they had specified, first of all, it's discontinued and they sent an alternate and it's old rock wall by Acme Brick. And it's fine by me from that standpoint. So my motion would still stand with the substitution of the brick to the old rock wall in lieu of the old Williamsburg.
Yeah,
Are we apples to apples?
Apples out, yeah, the site, the elevations say Old Williamsburg.
Yes.
But it's actually we'll
Old
submit new ones.
rock
It's gonna be
wall.
Old Rockwell.
Rockwell or rock wall?
I think it's rock.
We're close enough.
We have them. It's rock.
Mr. Carmichael, can you explain the difference in detail, please? I'm just kidding.
No, I
I'm just
cannot.
kidding. Okay, so I guess we need to call the vote again with the amendment to Old Rock Wall brick.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so that still stands with Commissioner Urban making the motion, Commissioner Whitley seconding. All in favor? Commissioner Garner,
Yes, Renee Garner.
unanimously again. Okay, thank you.
We keep working on it.
On to item 11, consent agenda.
I can make a motion that we approve consent agenda A through E7.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Whitley, a second by Mayor Pro Tem McCool. All in favor? Commissioner Garner,
Yes, Renee Garner.
anybody opposed? I don't think so. That passes unanimously. Thank you. Go on to unfinished business. Consider QBS exemption for engineering design work for hardscape project at 110 South Trade Street. Mr. Camp.
All right, we're in the speed round section of the
Thank you.
meeting.
Speed is good.
You've done these before. This is the design services exemption that the board has the authority to pass. This would be in conjunction with the potential public-private partnership at the old Exxon site for us to do a sidewalk enhancement and upgrade project for our downtown mobility study and design guidelines. So the request would be for a fee not to exceed $30,000. I think we're still comfortable with that based on what Susan and I have looked at. We would be partnering with the same firm that did the pattern book, as well as who's done the design work for the developer out there. So this is not, we're not asking you to authorize any contracts this evening, just the exemption and the attached ordinance.
Any questions for Jay? Any motions?
I can scroll down.
Why do you keep looking at me?
You were recused for so long.
Oh, okay. Is this a two-part motion, Charlie? Because it says to approve resolution and then when it's direct staff. Can we roll it into one? We can roll it into one. Okay, I'm gonna make a motion that we approve the resolution for the exemption of the QBS selection pursuant to General Statute 143-64.32 for the design of the streetscape at 110 South Trade Street, and to direct staff to negotiate with a firm to complete the streetscape design at 110 South Trade Street per the memo dated April 7th, 2022 by J. Camp, Planning Director.
Second. Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Urban, second by Commissioner Whitley. All in favor? Commissioner Garner?
Yes, Renee Garner.
That passes unanimously. Thank you. We'll go on to new business. Consider revisions to composite bicycle and pedestrian plan. Susan Habina Wooler.
Good evening, everyone. I am so thrilled to be the last one to make a presentation to you tonight. You all are still smiling. This is great news. I plan to be brief. I have a little PowerPoint presentation that they're pulling up. If you recall, back in November, we came to you and talked about the composite bicycle and pedestrian plan. We had all kind of bicycle and pedestrian stuff and lots of different plans, and that one plan kind of combined them all into one resource document for staff and developers. Lovely picture here of people cycling in Matthews. This was staged. Just in full disclosure, this is a staged photo, but this is a group ride here on the Matthews downtown loop. And we had reached out to you before about a potential ride, and we're happy to take you on a tour of the Matthews downtown loop. If you go to the next slide, just some highlights from your memo that I prepared for you, or I said I did. I think Dana's name is on it. Dana prepared for you, and I'm happy to present to you. The plan was adopted in 2015 that combined all those bits and pieces from other plans into one consolidated plan. We came to you in October 2021 because of the rail trail corridor. We did a couple other updates then, but we recognized the rail trail corridor was something we needed to preserve, get into a document so that when we and developers are working here in Matthews on developing sites, it's preserved or there's a reference for what needs to be done for the rail trail. And so we intend to continue to add our multi-use corridors to the plan as we develop them or as needed. The Matthews Downtown Bike Loop, called the MDL, because we like acronyms, it's a relatively new concept post 2015, and it's not included in the plan. You've recently heard us talk about it with the GO bonds package, and that came to light that, oh, wait, it's not in this plan. Let's get it in the plan. And so we would like to update the plan at this time, similar to what we did with the rail trail. Next page, or next slide, please. Next slide, please. So in your packet and online, thank you, there's a document that shows in red all the pages where we did all the updates, but just a couple highlights from that packet. I'm not going to go through all of them. The Matthews Downtown Loop does include 2 loops. The east loop here and the west loop here with a connector down Trade Street. So the whole loop itself is over 7 miles of envisioned 10-foot wide multi-use paths. So cyclists can get out of the road and ride on multi-use paths to do their loops. We also put in some extra options here. Here's a low stress route that we're investigating as part of the loop. We're not sure yet if we're going to cross it at Ames Street or Trade Street. This is showing the Crestdale Heritage Trails of the loop, but we envision that maybe it would just be the 4 Mile Creek Greenway as it comes through here. Here, if you need some extra mileage, you can go this route as you're doing your loop. So there are some additional options in there too that are part of that big long list of streets where we're envisioning multi-use paths, streets and off-road. Next slide, thank you. There is some modification on page 88. The first paragraph or the first sentence on page 88 says, for on-road facilities, the downtown loop only needs to be located on one side of the road. We wanted to be more clear. If it's already on one side, but it's the wrong side of the road, we still want you to get it on the correct side of the road. And so loops, if you've done a loop ride, it's all right turns, right? You don't want to cross the street and turn left and get in traffic. You want to do all right turns. So it's more advantageous for the downtown loop to stay on the downtown side of the street. So we added a bunch more words in there to try and be more clear to developers and people using the document to know, yeah, it only needs to be on one side of the road, but that's the side closest to town hall to, facilitate that right turn. But in some cases, we might end up with multi-use paths on both sides of the road, and that's okay because it helps the town's vision of becoming more walkable and bikeable. So tonight we're asking you to approve the recommended changes to the plan with this additional paragraph here on the bottom, replacing the paragraph on the top. Happy to answer any questions at this time.
I don't have any questions, but I can say unequivocally, especially since COVID, that all of our loops and multi-use paths, et cetera, are being used much, much, much more. And as I sit in my office overlooking the Greenway, I see people riding skateboards and rollerblading and lots of bikes. And so I think it's important that we keep this document updated and seeing a lot more use of all of these amenities for sure.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the recommended changes to the Town of Matthews Composite Bicycle and Pedestrian Plan to include the Matthews Downtown Loop as indicated in the attached document dated April 11th, 2022.
And I think Commissioner Garner wanted to second that.
Can you put that slide back with the modifications? Can you put slide 4 back up, please? With the additional proposed language as presented.
With the additional proposed modifications.
Thank you.
Do we have a second?
Seconded, Renee Garner.
Thank you. I wanted you to have that opportunity. Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor? Commissioner Garner?
Yes, Renee Garner.
Thank you. That passes unanimously.
Thank you, everyone.
That's an excellent example of when you talk about the East Loop and the West Loop, at this time of night, time is everything for everybody's.
That's right. That's right. All right, I'm going to give a very brief mayor's report, but I do want to talk about something that happened this past weekend in our community, and that is that our friends at WBT Radio celebrated their 100th anniversary as of yesterday. And my wife Penny and I attended their celebration at Paulton Arena at CPCC, and it was a really neat opportunity to see a lot of the on-air personalities from present and from years ago. And I learned quite a bit about the radio station, probably more meaningful for those of us that have lived here for a long time. But again, it was founded in 1922. The first broadcast was to a chicken coop. And they had a lot of firsts. One of the first things they did was they were the first radio station, I believe, in the country to regularly broadcast church services. And they actually broadcast a black church service back in the 1930s and 40s, which was unheard of at that time. And part of their, they also did something really neat back in the 30s. They put live on the air the wedding of two former slaves. The groom was 97 and the bride was 92 at that time. So really neat, long history. And for those of you that have lived here for a while, you probably remember H.A. Thompson. He was there, and they talked about a lot of the people in the past, like Rocking Ray Gooding and Henry Bogan, John Hancock, but they did induct 3 people into their Hall of Fame. One of them is John Stokes, who's been on the air for the last 30 plus years, reading the news, very recognizable voice. And the other 2 were Jim Zoki, who does all the Panther broadcasts. And it's hard to believe he looks like he's, a 25-year-old guy, but he's been in the business for about 30 years. And the last one was Bob Lacey, who joined WBT and has been in some way affiliated with their company since 1972. So he's been there 50 years, even though he only looks like he's about 30 also. So anyway, I wanted to give a shout out to WBT, the Colossus of the South. Sometimes I say the BT means the blowtorch of radio world. So we appreciate all they do. They were also incredibly helpful to our community right here in Matthews during Hugo. If you remember, when a lot of people didn't have power for weeks, used their transistor radios and got safety information from WBT. So did want to bring that up and congratulate them. That's all I've got. Town attorney's report. Becky, you have a town manager report?
Very brief tonight. Mayor, members of the board, I did send an email out about this afternoon, but just wanted to make sure to call to your attention. Just a brief update on the Stumptown and Matthews Veterans Memorial Park project. As you know, staff has been working very hard with our design partners to finalize the design of the Veterans Memorial Park project, and the anticipated construction schedule was slated to have the bid announcement at the end of this month. And following that timeline, they would be looking to have substantial completion of that project done by about mid-August. In order to meet that timeline, it is contingent upon being able to have a construction easement agreement with the owners of the old Exxon property in order to have access to that space. That agreement is being held up because of our other work with that property related to approval of the site plans. And so staff is continuing to work diligently to get that agreement. But without it, just the realities of the timing, it really starts to call into question whether or not we will be able to meet the prior timeline. Trying to navigate park construction around events gets very challenging. So if we're not able to keep this first timeline, the next free space of time that does not significantly impact already planned events, we're looking at a January construction. So just want to bring that potential to the board and the public's attention. Corey King, our Parks and Recreation Director, will be here at your next meeting with an official update on what that timeline is looking like, and to let the board know where we are formally going to stand on that, but just didn't want anyone to be caught unaware. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Before we adjourn, all of you should have received an invitation to our Law Enforcement Appreciation Public Service. We are very excited to be able to get this back on our agenda at the church after 3 years, and certainly it's going to be good food. And we're inviting all of you to come and be a part of that. I think this year we invited pretty much all the staff in their department, but it's a public service for the render for the town and for the citizens of Matthews. But I look forward to seeing all of you. It's 10 o'clock on May the 1st, I think it is. And you should have received the invitation by now. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Whitley.
Also, I'd like to make a motion, we adjourn.
Second. Motion by Commissioner Whitley, second by Mayor Pro Tem McCool. All in favor? Commissioner Garner.
Yes, Renee Garner.
Thank you. We are adjourned.